You're good. Should be good.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Education Committee meeting. Here today with me on my committee is myself, Robin Seagreaves, Donna Rowland, Norlin Elgin Bailey, and Steve Wilson. So therefore, we do have a quorum. And only committee members can vote on moving things forward to the full board meeting. We are going to start with a presentation from the consultants, Dignity Consulting, and I'm going to turn it over for you to bring them on. Thank you very much.
Floyd and John, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. So we're going to open this up with just a brief introduction, and then just an opportunity to share a little bit about Dignity Consulting, and then a couple of questions. We'll go from there. So tonight we have Dr. Floyd Cobb and Mr. John Crownapple of Dignity Consulting. This is the consulting group that we are proposing to work with the district with the title of Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cobb and Mr. Crownapple just to share a little bit about Dignity Consulting and then offer an opportunity to ask a couple questions. So Floyd and John, if you don't mind.
Great. Yep, that works. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for having us. We're very excited to be here and just looking forward to be able to talk to you, talk to the public in general, a little bit about what we do and how we endeavor to try to work with school districts and we're able to support them in terms of their efforts. As was noted, my name is Floyd Cobb. I am one of the authors of the book, Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. I work alongside John with Dignity Consulting. I come to this work with a significant amount of experience, both in K-12 and state education level work, and we've been able to kind of take all of those ideas together, but kind of blend them to be able to kind of take some lessons learned when it comes to broader implementation efforts that exist within school districts, generally speaking. And so, with all those things being said, John and I have been working together on this particular project for a number of years. We've had an opportunity to be able to work with a number of districts and organizations, I'd say more broadly, to be able to kind of help them in their efforts when they're kind of trying to address issues of culture improvement, I would say, in general. And so we're here this evening just to be able to answer any questions that you might have in terms of approach, in terms of whether we think about things. But before I think we get into that, I'll turn it over to John to give him an opportunity to introduce himself as well.
Sure thing. Thanks, Floyd. Hello, everyone. Honored to be with you all today. My name is John Crownapple. Like Floyd, I'm the other half of the co-author team of Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. Floyd and I have been spent the vast majority of our careers focusing on what nowadays gets wrapped up in the broad term of educational equity. And we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. He and I, our partnership really started around 2008, 2009. We lived and worked in very different regions, me on the East Coast, Floyd in Mountain Time. And what we started to map out around 2015 was just some of the common implementation mistakes that not only we had made, but we saw happening all over the place. And we decided to write about it, and since then, like Floyd mentioned, we've had the opportunity to help people, organizations in particular, not make some of the mistakes that we have made, as well as that we see other organizations making. So I'm coming to you today from Central Maryland. I'm located here right in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you have about us and the work at hand.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Seagreaves and Mr. Wilson just with any questions in regards to the work.
First, I just wanted to, thank you for coming. I know that when this was first presented, We did have some questions, but we didn't have you available to answer them. So, we did table it, and now you're back, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and allow us to ask questions regarding the proposals. And second, some of the questions came because at the time, there wasn't a proposal for a possible DEI coordinator or director here. So we weren't sure of the order of things. Now, that looks like that's something we'll discuss this evening as a possibility. So our questions might be a little less than they were initially, because it was really how would they interact? So I do know that Steve had some specific questions. I'm going to turn it over to you first, Steve, if that's okay.
Sure. I think my first question is actually not too specific or pigeonholing, but it is just that question of, we did just complete an equity audit for the district, as well as seemingly bringing in a DEI director. How would you typically imagine yourselves integrating your process that's going to roll out potentially over a year with the implementation of both of those?
Thanks for the question. One of the things that I think that we have really tried to learn is to be able to pay attention to the nuances and the implementation steps that are already occurring within school districts before trying to put a plan together. And so I think some of the lessons that we've learned, some of the at least missteps that obviously we've been a part of, and that sometimes we've seen others engage in, is to it's probably too strong of a term, but I'll use something better coming to mind, but to perhaps be dismissive or inconsiderate, probably more precise, of the efforts that are happening within a school district or a community. And so one of the things that John and I have really tried to engage in quite deliberately is paying very close attention not only to the governance structures that exist within school districts, but also the leadership structures that exist within school districts, and taking stock of what has happened, where things are, and then where some of the lessons that we've learned or some of the approaches that we might take might be able to integrate into what's happening. We say all this keeping in mind that some of the things that we certainly learned and observed with diversity, equity, inclusion director types of roles is that the implementation of those positions, the design and implementation of those positions is equally as important, as their creation and thinking about, certainly where they sit within the organizational chart, the responsibilities and the goals that are tasked with that particular role, and thinking about how it might be able to be successful. And so what John and I have really tried to be able to do is to think about this more in terms of measurables and deliverables, in terms of being able to measure, talk about the measurement of the climate and culture, what steps might need to be taken in order to be able to accomplish that, and kind of think through, work with organizations to think about what steps need to take place in order to be able to correct it. But at the end of the day, for us, these things really boil back down to making sure that there's a proper accountability structure that is in place. And so working with both the governance structure, but also the leadership structure, in order to ensure that the accountability begins to filter and work its way all throughout the organization. John?
Thanks I appreciate the opportunity to respond to this question. The simple answer is, you have basically a needs assessment or a study or an audit or whatever type of language might best describe it. And then you have your local context. And of course, paying attention to nuance, like Floyd said, is something that we've learned is of the utmost importance. Now, a little bit about how we've seen implementation go off the rails, so to say, is when the organization isn't paying close attention to the human factors related to change. And that's where, that's what informed our theory of action eventually, is that effective implementation really takes into account dignity and belonging as keys. And when it comes to, equity, which your study was all about, the end goal really is to create environments where every single student has the opportunity to thrive, right? And so another way of phrasing that is that everyone is treated with dignity and feels like they belong in that classroom, that school, that district. And those are like the fundamental baseline needs that people have in order to have the opportunity to be at their best. So just coming back to some of the misimplementation, it seems to occur pretty predictably when we have some needs, we have an outcome that we're shooting at, but we don't pay attention to the consistency in between. So we're working toward increasing dignity in our schools and classrooms, but for instance, we're putting actions into place that don't necessarily honor the dignity of the adults that are working in the schools. So just as an example, so the short response in my mind to your question is our job is to help you best respond to that needs assessment in a way that equates to effective implementation.
Thank you. I'd rather yield to other board members than take more time on questions, if there's questions from others here.
Can you tell me if you've worked with other districts similar to the diversity of ours?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. It's been interesting to work everywhere, from Maine to Hawaii and everywhere in between, and a little further north into Canada, and realize, the differences in terms of things like geography, culture, politics, demographics, etc. And so every place, has a uniqueness to it. And part of our work is to best help our partners solve their own problems, to basically equip them. So in our, kind of initial look at your community and the cultural diversity that's present there, especially in relation to, just outside of your area, especially in Pennsylvania, there are a number of communities that we've worked with that line right up in terms of similar demographics.
So looking at the proposal, your approach is kind of a top-down approach. Is that a correct assessment?
Did you hear that, John?
Yeah, I mean, top down to a degree. I think the important piece is certainly to be able to make sure that the decision makers are informed and can help guide, direct where things need to go. But it's really important to make sure that there is, so I got a hedge on this, it's really important to make sure that there is data and evidence from the people who are most impacted to be able to inform what types of decisions are being made. And so sometimes when I hear the phrase top down, I sometimes think about the decisions being made independent of the perspectives or perceptions or feelings of people who are impacted by those decisions, but most importantly, what we think about is being able to certainly allow the people in leadership positions to be able to lead, but leading by having evidence and data and feedback and perception data to be able to kind of make sure that we have a clear understanding of how those improvement processes are moving and what modifications and adjustments need to take place over time.
That's exactly where my mind was on it. It's I paused at the top down because given the choice of top down or bottom up, there's a dichotomy right there that doesn't quite work with this. So we're, as far as starting, like Floyd said, with people who are conferred power through their positions of authority, and how they use that authority becomes extraordinarily important, because what you're looking at in terms of the need is culture shift. And Peter Drucker has this famous quote attributed to him called, well, not called, but it goes along the lines of culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so when we're looking at cultural shift, we're really thinking about who are the primary keepers of climate and culture? Well, it's the people who have basically disproportionate authority within that particular environment. And so making sure that everything Floyd said, with those leaders being equipped with what they need to do their part in terms of setting the tone. But I want to stop at that in terms of not doing things to people that they supervise, but doing things with people in the same way that we know makes sense in the classroom.
And what role would you say the board plays in the proposal here that we have in front of us? Where do we get involved, or are we involved in this training as well?
No, I mean, I always say that I think that the school boards play a major role. I think it's, depending upon how you all would like to structure things, I think it's really important for board members to have a clear understanding of sort of the theory of action in general in terms of what it is that we propose, and that way you all have a pretty clear insight as to what's being recommended. As this process moves forward, I certainly would encourage, recommend as much as I can to ensure that there continues to be regular reporting to the board related to progress. And this isn't something that I would say needs to be done, that doesn't need to be done by us, or probably should need to be done by us, but rather be done by the folks in the school district, so that again, this becomes treated as if it's an improvement process, not dissimilar to if it was a math or literacy initiative that was being implemented. John?
I think you covered that one.
Since this is a presentation for questions, I'll open it up to the rest of the board if anyone else has questions at this time. Ms. Muirhead?
You mentioned before that there were districts that you'd worked with that have similar demographics to ours. The local district that I had heard that had recommended you all, or where there was some buzz, has incredibly different demographics to us. That was Haverford Township, Radnor. Our district is, I think more than 60% non-white, more than 70% economically disadvantaged, and so it's a very different experience here. I don't know if you need permission from other school districts to talk about which ones you've worked with, but I think it would be reassuring to us to know more specifically which school districts you've worked with that are similar to ours, because there are not a lot.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. I was just thinking, okay, which Pennsylvania districts are we talking about? So thank you for naming one or two there. Yeah, so we've worked with major metropolitan districts, New York City Public Schools, St. Louis Public Schools. Those are a couple that come to mind. And like I said, everything from that to extremely rural places like Central Oregon, where they're extremely wide and broad areas. A couple more, we've worked with districts in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is some of the most culturally diverse areas that we in fact have worked with. So I could bring up, those are just off the top of my head.
No, that's helpful.
Give you that information if you want some references or some other geographic locations. Floyd, anything to add to that?
No, I think the only thing that I would add to that is that, again, one of the things that we feel is important is to be able to make sure that the community is getting answers and responses in terms of what it actually needs. And so, in thinking about that particular question, I think that one of the things that we've kind of come to understand is that every community is going to have its own unique needs. And so, the approach that would need to be taken solve whatever needs that might exist aren't necessarily going to come from a boilerplate, but rather, come from, an iterative process, engaging back and forth in such a way that it actually meets a specific need.
Thank you. My next question is with regards to the equity study that we had referenced. How would you plan to incorporate the findings of that equity study into tailoring the belonging work to the needs of our district that were identified there?
Well, the first thing to come to mind is if you've looked at the proposal I have in front of you, one of the things that we do is form a pilot cohort, and it's a school improvement process focused on climate and culture, with an emphasis on responding to perception data and disaggregating it and that type of thing. So within that experience, each of the schools has an improvement project, and so what we try to guide them to do is to integrate their focus of their project in the district goals or the district the broader district efforts. So one of the things that we would end up doing there is ensuring that whatever the schools are working on is lining up with what the needs are exposed there in the report. What?
No, I don't think that I would add anything else to that. Again, I think that it's basically, again, blending the information in the report in addition to any other findings that emerge or use that then start to be able to figure out or determine what a solution might be.
Thank you. And then I have one more question. And I think in our initial discussion about this proposal, I was told that we had actually specifically asked for you to do some workshops with our student leaders. And I think from our perspective, we feel like the students have unique insight into the culture and climate in the district, and also an opportunity to help us improve things from a grassroots perspective. I'm curious how often you've incorporated student workshops into your program, or if this is something new that we've pushed for specifically.
No, it's not something new. Here's the general flow, but all of this is customized. I would say we probably don't have two partnerships that look the same or two proposals that look the same, and we've probably worked with 3 or 4 dozen different districts over the past year. So what we want to do is help staff develop a mindset that prioritizes the concepts of dignity and belonging in terms of their everyday work, right? It's all about the manner in which we do whatever we do. And then what we do is we fold in the student development. Now we've called it different names depending on which names line up best with the district goals. So sometimes we call it belonging ambassador development, sometimes student dignity facilitator development, and sometimes that happens in year 2 once there's a critical mass in terms of the adults that can want to engage with students in a humanizing way, in a deeply humanizing way. Sometimes it's during year 1, and we've even had some situations where we have partners that want to start with that. Now, we've learned some lessons along the way with that third option, which is things tend to go a lot smoother when we start with the adults and start with the positional leaders. Starting with the students would not be our first recommendation, although we aren't the experts on the local context, and that's why we're always open to that discussion. But that process, we have a facilitator on our team named Trent Hall, and he's the lead facilitator with the student-facing work, and it is absolutely remarkable results that come out of that process.
Thank you.
Does anyone else on the board have questions?
I do have one more that came to mind. we've talked about demographics a couple times. To my knowledge, we have about, I want to say 93% white educators, about 7% educators of color, with a student body that's dramatically different than that. So when I hear you sharing what you just shared, starting maybe not so much with student body, but with educators, how do you encourage or navigate that difference in demographic, especially in a district we mentioned a number of times that is unique, and I would probably add to that has some pretty deep levels of distrust across race. So can you help us understand maybe that dynamic and how you work with dignity and racial equity, racial healing, trust?
I apologize, I was looking for my unmute button. Yeah, we could both handle this one. So the dynamic of being upwards of 85% white educators is a national just fact as well. So it's not unusual to really most places in the United States. And so part of our process early on in terms of staff is actually acknowledgement of the reality of things, and that's all a part of the process that we guide people through, which is really it hinges on being able to assess culture and climate. And I'm going to kind of pivot here, and Floyd, help me come back. I'll actually toss it your way in a second. What you're speaking to is at the heart of the issue. This question really cuts right to the center of things, because one of the things Floyd and I started discussing in 2015 as we started to get concerned with the way discourse was lacking or playing out in forums like social media, just how we saw conflict escalating all over the place. We saw these type of efforts becoming increasingly overly complicated. And what we started basically unpacking was that what is at the heart of all of this is conflict. And it dates way back. We're talking about a conflict of dignity where entire groups of people were basically conferred less value and worth than others. And so the way it plays out in our contemporary lives in a number of different ways, including interpersonal dynamics where even among friends or people that we live with, our family, which basically is at the heart of unresolved conflict are the unaddressed, unhealed wounds to dignity. And so the gaps in trust are really a predictable part of all of this. And acknowledging that isn't necessarily the hardest part, but when it comes to basically developing relational trust, or in the big picture resolving some of the conflict that has been just going unresolved or even escalating, there really are two ingredients that become very important in terms of shaping the culture of dignity, which is acknowledgement and accountability. And so there are a number of different processes that we could get into. Even the previous question about the student-facing work, that's really a process of building relational trust where people can see each other as humans and not objects, because we know that in a culture of dignity, and just to kind of compound it on, when conflict escalates, it's very predictable that people will dehumanize one another and see each other as less than human. So all of our processes, whether it's discussion protocols or certain exercises that we do in a workshop setting, are all designed to humanize one another as a starting point. And from there, we can develop connectedness and start to build capacity around what can we do in our everyday lives. So I know I detoured there, Floyd. I'm going to toss it over to you.
I think I heard a follow-up question, so I don't want to step on that.
No, it was the same question, Floyd.
Okay. No, I think that what John said, I think really gets to the heart of it, which is, I think part of the reason why this continues to be an ongoing conversation and so many schools across the country. And I say this a lot, and I'm sure folks will hear me say this. Should we get an opportunity to speak, which is that this is a long-standing challenge that I think has existed within public education in this country, and that I think there are desires for demographic parity, but practical reality of that is that the numbers just aren't there, and there's limits, and there's children who are in school now, and their dynamics need to exist currently. And so one of the things that I think is just really important to continue to consider and remember is, what we attempted to be able to do in terms of trying to provide this framework is to provide another lens or a filter through which the student feedback and the student data is provided, such that people who are receiving it can, interpret it in a way that is common amongst everybody and is familiar. So providing folks with a different set of tools to be able to kind of think through what actually what needs aren't necessarily being met by or being received. Needs aren't being fulfilled rather by the students, and being able to kind of support people in terms of the steps that they might need to take in order to provide a pathway forward. Talk about that in terms of some first-hand experiences with one of our colleagues who did this very work, within her elementary classroom, but really kind of getting clear on kind of emotions and tensions that are associated with, receiving direct feedback from each student.
Any other questions? Since there's no other questions, again, I just thank you so much for coming this evening. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Floyd and John. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay. So now we'll move to I'm sorry. Did someone say something? No. Okay. Now we'll move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes. For the last board meeting, May 14th, 2024. Is there anyone on the committee that has any questions about that? See anything that needed edited? Seeing none. If you wish to move this on to the full board, please say yes. Yes. Okay, that'll move on to the full board meeting. Thank you. Okay, now we're really going to dig in. We now have a State of the District by Dr. Van Voren.
Good evening. So tonight's presentation is a State of the District, which just gives information across department areas as to what progress we've made over the last year in different areas of business across the district. All right, we will start with the Curriculum Office. So within the Curriculum Office, we've done a lot of work with federal programs, which is, many people have heard of Title I services, Title II, Title III, Title IV. We actually had an audit conducted this year to get us through all of this, as well as analyzing how we can use this federal funding to maximize student impact and to progress them in their academics. Along with that, you've heard us with ESSERS, which is the presentation Dr. Rabarczyk is going to do right after this one, which is just a series of funding, this one focused on the American Rescue Act, a series of funding that has been used across districts that started during the time of COVID. So currently we are in ESSER 3, which is the funding needs to be completed by the end of September 2024. Previous spending has been in the area of salaries and cyber programming monies towards curriculum development, MTSS, Chromebooks, and Reeseville's HVAC system replacement. Currently, you'll watch tonight's presentation with Dr. Robarczyk, which is focusing on this year using monies towards our Apple initiative, K-5, new curriculum materials, professional development, social and emotional programming, and of course our equity initiative. So it's been a lot in the areas of federal funding within this office. All right. We've also had various curriculum initiatives that have taken place over the last year. With that, we wanted to kick off kindergarten registration with having a kindergarten carnival, which many people saw. It was on social media and in the news. We were very excited to welcome over 100 incoming kindergartners. And as total, we had 300 participants in the evening. So we had a lot of registrations following that, which is exactly what we wanted. We want people to be excited about starting to come into Coatesville and start their educational career, and their parents. Along with that, we are in our first full year of implementation with our open court reading. We have added an AP seminar course that is focusing on having students analyze different perspectives, investigate academic real-world topics, and understand course credibility. This is an add-on to our AP course listing, which is what we were trying to bolster for programs for students that wanted to take an AP level coursework. We've also adopted a math curriculum program, Envision. Last year we did it at the secondary level. This year we piloted elementary, so we'll be rolling that out next fall, or this coming fall. We also added a grammar program. So upon looking at our data and assessment within the districts, we saw that there was a gap in progress, and when we drilled down to the standards, it all had to do with grammar. So we did add on a grammar supplement to our curriculum at the middle school level. And something exciting is that we are bringing cursive and handwriting back to the elementary schools, so we are looking forward to that this fall as well. All right, so anyone knows that if you don't have students here, they can't learn. So this is just a 3-year progression of our attendance policy, or attendance numbers. So you can see our percentages across all of our school buildings. We've spent a lot of attention in this area, and as you can see, every single school in the district has improved by, I think, minimally 4%, which is fantastic. So some strategies that have been included to improve these numbers, of course, are improved student attendance plans, or SAPEs. We've also made human connections where we're, letting the students know that we miss them and we need them to be in school, and building those relationships so students have a connection to at least one adult in the buildings. We've also increased home visits, partnerships with various community agencies, such as the Academy Truancy Diversion Program. So we have been working with them, and in tandem, and that's through Children and Youth Services. In tandem, it provides initiatives, and it also provides plans for students that are habitually truant. We've also added our new Power School Attendance Intervention Program, which, as you know, will be sending immediate letters out, taking the human component out of somebody having time to craft those letters and send them out to families. So those are just a few of the things that we've done thus far to improve attendance. If we want to break those numbers down a little bit further, this chart breaks it down through racial demographics across the district per school, and this is a board request for this information. So as you look across there, you can see an NA just states that we don't have a student group of that ethnicity within that particular building. And for those straining to see across the table, please also know that this is in your presentation under executive content. So that's in there as well. All right, moving into the area of facilities. Here is just a chart with work order information that has been provided, and this is just at a glance. We've been spending a lot of time to improve our work order system to ensure that tasks are executed properly and timely, that resources are well allocated, and that our customers, students, teachers, faculty, staff, and administrators, have their expectations met within the school. So if you take note, 100% of our maintenance and grounds requests have been resolved over the last year. And you can also see the breakdown of work orders in the center there of all the different areas. And then, of course, just to give you an idea, our facilities has resolved 6,043 work orders in the last year. So that's a lot of facility requests. So we were excited about that, and it's helpful to see this system so that we can keep up with the work orders. Moving into the next area of facilities is all of our different projects we have throughout the district. So as you are aware, or maybe not aware, at North Brandywine, we will be having some upcoming construction, which will be in September, but we have some mechanics out there. There's a picture of drillers at North Brandywine. That determines the stability of makeup and makeup of the earth in order to plan for the support, the weight of a new building. There's also a picture of the Scott Middle School HVAC renovations. We are also doing a partial roof work through a Siemens grant, so you can also see a picture. That's just one picture to show you some of the work. But if you drive past Scott, you'll see heavy work in there over the summer. The next picture is just your before and hopefully after. So here we have some pictures of the South Brandywine site, which we will start to see some deconstruction of the old middle school building there, with the hopes that by the end of August, very beginning of September, a brand new elementary school, K-5, will be born. And there is a rendition of that new beautiful building that we are so excited about. All right, also with facilities, we have turned out publications. We have some on the website. We've sent some to families. These are our most recent publications that we're about to send out, which gives timelines. It shows facilities and realignment. As you know, we did a realignment of our school structure, and so on the front page of the website under quick links is a school finder where any member of the public can type in their address, and then it will show them what elementary school and what middle school that they will be assigned. So anyone can look at that. Currently, the middle school reassignment will begin next year. We will have 6th and 7th grade in either Scott or North Brandywine, followed by the realignment for elementary schools in the fall of 2026. So this just maps it out for anybody in a different form to explain what the timeline is for each of our projects. So along with the project at South Brandywine and the ongoing construction that is going to start at North, we also have a wing going on at Reeseville coming in September. We have our HVAC at Scott, and then we have some remediation taking place at both Callan and Kings Highway this summer. All right, and we move into technology. So we have done a lot of work with technology over the last year. We have 57 devices, copier replacement, that is now with Secure Print, which promotes people being less wasteful with running copies and then forgetting about the copies and running more copies because somebody grabbed them and threw them out, so that anyone with a district ID can place their ID on the copier and it prints out in queue what it is. This is also important for confidential information that other people are doing on a generalized copier. We have had better connectivity with district wired and wireless replacements. We have our servers that we are improving upon, both physical and virtual. And then, of course, there is our cybersecurity that we are diving into. For those at home, cybersecurity consists of safe internet browsing, email security, password management, malware detection, and of course, incident response. So all of those things are starting to go out, and we are starting to put a program into place for all of our teachers, staff, and faculty in the fall to make us more secure. All right. Along with another ticketing system, we did implement a more comprehensive technology ticketing system so that once again we can track things. Gone are the days where tickets are placed and nobody answers them and they just float off into cyberspace. So now this gives a little more accountability for those folks to keep up with all of the requests as well. And then there are endpoint detection and response services. Upcoming transitions and exciting things are moving to our new Verkada camera systems, security systems, which over the last several meetings, there have been presentations. We also will be moving from eSchool on our own server and moving it to a virtual server, therefore freeing up more space. We are moving into a new website, which will start over the summer. We are going from our district website to what's called Aptogee, which will also be a neat app that people can download onto their phones and see all kind of specific information to their child and their child's school instead of fishing around on a website and trying to figure out that information. And we will also be moving to contracted staff to in-house employees within the technology department. All right, in pupil services. So expulsions have been reduced over the last year. And just to give you an idea, as a 3-year, in 21-22, we had 34 expulsions. In 22-23, we had 38 expulsions. In 23-24, we had 28 expulsions. So I believe that as we continue to work towards truly understanding the situation with the student and having a more appropriate code of conduct with different steps in place to be proactive strategies, I think that we're going to get there. And it's visible in the schools. Also, looking at this, we look at standard operating procedures and eSchools training for discipline entry to make sure that our data is pure when we are putting it into the system and consistent. So we want to have processing. This helps with processing discipline referrals. It helps with our forms. It helps with our questioning across various areas in the school system. And training was also provided to secretarial staff to make sure that the input is as accurate as the action. We also had code of conduct changes, which I will say for a little bit later this evening to make it a little bit easier for everyone else to understand. Procedural manuals have been created over the last year, and with that, administration has requested a guidebook to board policy with both the policies that they have to know and the ARs that assist them in following those policies. So currently the Pupil Services Office is beginning that manual to help our administrators be able to be more accurate with following board policy. MTSS is running smoothly across our buildings. We'd now like to edit that and bring in the early warning system so that it's one process for our students. So we are currently working on that as well. In our special education programming, we have a continued partnership. Right now, we are a member of the Autism Initiative, which assists with training and classroom supports for our teachers for those specialized classrooms. We are actually growing specialized classrooms at the elementary level, which provide our students with a continuum of services so that less students are leaving our district to go to placements and they're staying here in their neighborhood schools. We are also enhancing programming such as our middle school life skills, and we did develop an autistic support classroom at CASH. All right. We also this year, the board did earlier in the year approve an audit of our special education programming for our emotional support program. So the CCIU is currently doing that to help our district better utilize our current resources, as well as tell us what we still need to have done and any ongoing training that should be provided to our instructors. We did hire a transition coordinator this spring. That transition coordinator will support transition compliance, which is Indicator 13 training, and assist with the alignment and continuum of services for our students, especially those students that are 18 to 21 in our district, and partner with different businesses and jobs across the county to help that workforce development, as well as start working with oh my goodness, right out of my head, the waiver process. Sorry, the waiver process that students need when they leave school and continue life onward after Coatesville. We also are building our own capacity for school psychologists. School psychologists, among many other jobs, have been in shortage, and so we have a lot of contracted services. So what we did is we received a grant from PHEAA. That stands for the Pennsylvania Mental Health Education Learning Program in Schools. And we did receive a grant, which is going to allow us for 2 psychology interns to be paid. And we were able also just recently to fill one of our psychology positions. So that is one step towards bringing our own and training them within house to keep them here at Coatesville. Lastly, some exciting things, which you'll also see as a creation of a position, is we are growing our gifted program. So we are asking for another gifted teacher because this year we have 25 newly identified students within our gifted program, and 25 additional students are just about to qualify. So if that all goes through, that could be a potential of 50 new gifted students, which warrants another case manager. So an additional gifted teacher at the elementary school will allow us to continue for programming and provide our highest achieving students in our youngest grades options. At the secondary level, we have AP courses, we have honors courses, we have ways that students can enrich their own curricular advancement. But at the elementary level, we have to provide more, so we'll be looking at those services for our elementary students. Along with that, we have 170 new kindergarten students coming in just from our early intervention program. So all of those students have a designated need. So that is something that we are preparing for. And again, this is not just Coatesville. This is a trend that is actually national, where a lot of students are qualifying for service prior to coming into kindergarten. All right, for safety and security, this year we received a Safe Schools grant from PDE for $723,000, which was wonderful. That helped us to purchase and install all new cameras, security cameras district-wide. A successful collaboration has been in place with our district and the juvenile probation system, so that is reducing the number of juveniles that are being referred. We are partnering with various community stakeholders, and we have ongoing officer training because we want to make sure that our security and our officers have all that they need for crisis intervention, de-escalation, and active shooter training, to name a few. And then, of course, we are building our own department here. When I came about 1.5 years ago, we had 1 police officer and 1 security officer. Now we have an additional 2 full-time police officers, a part-time police officer, and 1 district safety officer along with that. So we are growing that program. And then we did have successful implementation of our open gate scanners, which you've probably seen at football games. We've also used that at various district events and also at the high school. All right, this is just some HR information about new hires over the last year. We have 123 new hires, and that is including all positions. So that could be anywhere from a custodial to secretarial to a teacher to an aide to an administrator. And there's just some information there for you. Some programs that we have come out of the dark ages and gotten out of all of our paper, we've brought things online in the Human Resources Department. So we have our new Act 168 online system. This is an online record system whereby our district provides information for people that worked here or collects information for new employees that tells us if there's been any incident related to child abuse or sexual misconduct. This Act 168 is school code, and it is in every district where you have to fill in these papers of anyone you've ever worked for before starting a new job. This puts it on a technology system, so instead of potentially sending 7 different papers or collecting 7 different papers by an employee, we have it all online now. Along with that, we also have our recruiting through our new Power School module. That onboarding paperwork is the same thing where people can do it at home instead of coming in and sitting there and completing a huge stack of paperwork. HR has attended 17 job fairs. You can see some of the other with recruitment. But next year we are going to move to a hiring team to increase our efforts. I'm not going to go too much into finance because you are going to see a budget presentation this evening. However, along with our monitoring that we've gone through ESSERS and also federal programs, we have also handled 65 right-to-know requests over the last year. And at our high school, we're always very excited about the awards and the scholarships that are given. We did have 170 this year, but with that, even those people that donate money, it still means the business office has to use that and create a check. So all of that is done through the business office. Not many people know that. We are completing our final budget, and we are wrapping up the school year in preparation for our upcoming audit. The master facilities plan, so as much as we have going on with construction, that always, makes people leery. So as we presented last year, we have one of 3 borrowings, and we have successfully used the first one. And we have completed our audit over this past year to increase our fund balance, giving us a total fund balance of approximately $23.5 million. All right, we do have a current communications plan with our part-time PR specialists. With that, we are trying to strengthen internal communication. That was one thing that came out of that audit. We are increasing some of our communication to the district by sending our biweekly newsletter and increasing our social media presence and also having things sent out. And of course, we are doing a lot of, myself and Dr. Robarczyk are getting out there as much as we possible, not only at schools, but I'm also a member of several community organizations so that we can show a true partnership with Coatesville. Along with that, we have a branding guide, and some of those are just some examples that have been done, including our promotional video and our postcard mailing that hopefully everybody enjoyed. Most recently, we've had a realignment plan that has had a lot going out with our PR so that everybody understands exactly what school they're being assigned to and the timeline of events within our construction project. But we've also had to deal with several high-profile crises, unfortunately, this spring, so that did take a lot of attention and energy, and that's never anything anyone wants to do. Some noteworthy examples of getting ourselves out there is, of course, our state championship for our track, and even some fun things that we did on social media, like pictures of teachers when they were high school graduates. And you'd be surprised of how many teachers and faculty members are actual Coatesville high school graduates right here. So that was a fun activity. Bringing me to a close and having us look forward to the next school year. And that kind of gives you an at-a-glance of every department going on here within the district. Any questions? It was a lot.
A little. Thank you very much, Dr. Van Voren. I appreciate that. Okay. Now we're still at the very beginning. Now we're going to move on to Dr. Robarczyk for his presentation on ESSERS 3 update.
I promise I'm going to try to be brief. But thank you for letting me come to the mic tonight and just update you on the American Rescue Plan, ESSERS 3. As you know, we're trying to utilize these funds for the best of the students and their learning loss that occurred through the pandemic and forward. So we have September 30th, 2024. You're going to hear that date. I'm going to be coming up to the mic at least two more times after this to bring proposals to spend the rest of the funding. But at this point, I just wanted to give you a couple updates on the iPad initiative. As I said from the last month, we're doing the K-5 initiative. I updated the cost. We added some items that we reflected on that we're in need of making sure that we're utilizing the iPads in the classrooms to the fullest extent. So the Apple TV was added, as well as the 5 iPad Pro and the Mac Minis, which is more items needed for the management component of all the iPads that we're going to have in the district. And as well as the Mosel, which is, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, Mr. Oliver, but forgive me if I'm not, but that is the actual management system that provides the upload for the iOS and the updates and everything, and pushing out apps to the iPads and everything. And then the other piece that we added was the professional learning, because as I mentioned to you the last time I was up here, we don't want to do anything half-assed. We want to make sure we're giving teachers the proper professional learning so they can utilize these devices to the maximum. I also have Harris Education Solutions, which is our EdInsight, our database management. This is one piece that was brought on a couple years ago, so we could maintain data in a manageable way, including from state assessments, local assessments, and so on. So I was able to extend this to a 3-year contract, and some discounts included as part of that contract. So this will help us to maintain that database for the next 3 years, utilizing our funding through ESSERS. The Envision Professional Learning, as you know, we're moving forward with Envision at the elementary level, but we also don't want to lose out on our professional learning at the middle school and high school level to ensure that our teachers are getting continued professional learning as we move forward in implementing these programs. Smithsonian Science, Carolina Biological. We are in the midst of the STEEL standards being brought on in the 25-26 school year. So we are looking at programs that are going to be necessary to meet the standards. So this is one of the pilots that we're looking to do with Carolina Biological. And what they did was they are charging us for the cost of the kits because they are hands-on material manipulatives in the kits. So we're purchasing kindergarten and first, but they are giving us third, fourth, and fifth at no cost. So it's kind of a meet in the middle piece to this. But we will be piloting this across all 5 elementary schools at different grade levels over the next trimester in the new year. And then Voyager Sopris Learning, which is TransMath. This is a program that we looked at last year. We want to continue at the middle school and high school levels. It's generally used in our special education programs. It's to support and enhance and enrich what the students are doing in the general math class, but then support them with an additional remediation of math using the TransMath so we can get them up to speed with those foundational skills that are necessary to be successful in math. We also have grades 1 to 5 Scholastic News. I mentioned this previously, that currently we do not have a social studies resource. We utilize our reading book, which is Open Court, to teach our social studies. So it's kind of a two-prong approach to reading and developing social studies skills. So this will be an additional resource across all elementary schools, grades 1 to 5, where every student will receive a paper copy. If you've ever seen the Scholastic News, it generally has different themes that go along with it each month that teachers can utilize to further extend the learning for social studies in the classrooms. So from the last time, approximately remaining of the ESSERS funds was about 2.2 million. We're now down to about 1.9 million. So again, as I said, I'll be investigating and working with teachers and students and staff to identify any other areas that we want to utilize these funds for the learning loss. Any questions?
I do not have any questions.
All right.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
No? Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item, where are we? 4? 4A, right? Okay, A, we're finally at A. We just made it to A. All right, so this is the Dignity Consulting, which we received the presentation. The recommended action is that the Board of Directors approve the Dignity Consulting proposal as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this? No? Excellent. Does anyone else on the board have any comments or questions? Seeing, all right. If you would like to move this on to the full board, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, one down. Okay. The next is confidential settlement agreement and release, that the Board of School Directors approve the settlement agreement for student 100-178-13 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the administration or wish to comment at this time? At this time, if you would like to move this on to the full board meeting, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that will move forward to the full board. Now we're on to item C, 2024 ESY addendum, the Timothy School. And that is that we recommend for these certain students as presented. Does anyone have questions about this or would like to comment on the committee? No? Anyone else on the board? Excellent. If you'd like to move this on to the full board for approval, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that will be moved to the full board. Next is D, 2024 ESY agreement for the Pathway School. Very similar. I should have grouped them. But does anyone have any questions or comments on the committee? Anyone from the full board? Okay, if you'd like to move this on, please say yes. Yes.
That does have a Pathway School, and that might want to change in the comments, in the section that has Timothy instead of Pathway, just for when it goes to full board approval.
Oh, the top one says, the second one says Timothy also, just in
It does, yep.
for the minutes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, item E, independent contractor contract, the Stepping Stone Group, that the school board of directors approve the independent contractor contract with Stepping Stones LLC. Again, is there any questions or comments from the committee? Anyone from the full board have a question or comment? Okay, if you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that will be moved on. I will group the next two. They are related, correct? Yeah. So for Funflix, F and G Swank, item F, item G, Funflix and Swank is all related to the same movie rental and showing. And so it's recommended that the school board of directors approve these for costs indicated for the first one is $1,226.80. We have a deposit that will be due. The event is on 8/8 for the One District, One Book culminating movie night event as presented. And then the Swank K-12 licensing, that's for the actual licensing to show it, correct? Okay. Does anyone on the board, on the committee, sorry, have any questions or comments? No? Anyone on the board? Okay. If you'd like to move both item F and G on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, item H, Believe and Achieve Foundation donation to CASD Summer Program, Title I Rainbow Elementary. Recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the donation of weekly produce, weekly assemblies, learning experiences, T-shirts, and program supplies valued at $19,620 to the summer program as presented. I'd obviously like to say that's amazing and thank you very much. Does anyone else on the committee have any comments or questions? No? Anyone on the full board? All right. If you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And another item I, recommended that the Board of Directors approve the donation from Cal Ripken Senior Foundation STEM initiative to provide school youth the opportunity to participate in STEM activities valued at $22,300 as presented. And of course, again, it's very generous, and I'd like to thank the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. Would anyone else on the committee have any questions or comments? Anyone on the full board have any questions or comments? Excellent. If you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. J, Immaculata University School Affiliation Agreement. It's recommended to approve the affiliation agreement with Immaculata University. It does outline the expectations for educational experiences for university students as presented. And does anyone have questions or comments on the committee? Anyone on the board? If you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Item K, Harris Education Solutions, Ed Insight Data Management. Recommended that the school directors approve 3-year contract with Harris Education Solutions for Ed Insight Data Management and Analytics as presented, funded through ESSERS 3 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments? Anyone on the full board have questions or comments? If you'd like to move this on to the full board, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. L, recommended action, the school board of school directors approve the, oh boy, is it Houghton? Houghton, oh, close. Mifflin Harcourt proposal for middle school 6 to 8 and high school 9 to 12 social studies. It's a 6-year duration at a cost proposal of $431,600 as presented. This is also funded through ESSERS 3. So is there anyone on the committee that has questions or comments? I wanted to clarify this. I had asked this. I always, want to, when we have a pre-meeting, to just get clarification, I try to ask the same questions in public. So, Dr. Rubarczyk, we talked about the social studies curriculum hasn't come forth yet, but this is a 6-year contract for these resources. Can you just explain that?
Sure. So the McDougall-Littell texts that are being currently used was bought by HMH, which converted their platform over to a digital platform, but utilized a lot of the information, the context that was in their textbook. So this is a continuation to replacement because the McDougall-Littell books are no longer available. So this will be a 6-year digital license for every student 6 through 12 for social studies. Even though the curriculum has not been brought forward, this is the program used to support the curriculum. The majority of the curriculum has been written. It's going to be brought to you in the fall for approval, but this does align with what the curriculum that's currently in place with the program that we'll be using to support it. Does that make sense?
Does anyone else on the committee have questions? Anyone from the full board have questions?
I have a question, but what if the curriculum is not approved, that we don't approve the curriculum in the fall? Are we stuck with this program for the 6 years?
Not stuck with it, but the curriculum, more likely, you won't have any issues with it. It could still go through some tweaking because the curriculum is aligned with the standards. So it's aligned with what we have to teach in the school, in our classrooms. So whether the resources, the additional resources have to be tweaked beyond the HMH, or we can actually look to the program. If we pull something out of the curriculum that's still in the digital platform, we don't have to utilize that piece. This actually gives us more flexibility than using an actual paper text, because we can pull things out or add pieces.
And with this being covered in ESSERS, that gives us 6 years of a resource that we don't have to go into the budget. And if a recycle of curriculum made the drastic change, we could then at that option look at getting something within the general budget. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
One more quick question. So just for clarity, so if for instance, a DEI director has suggestions on additions, subtractions, additional materials that would kind of laminate with this program can work with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. If you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Getting lost. Where am I here? Okay. Oh, item M. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the price quote summary for Envision Professional Development for Envision Math 6 through 8 as presented. Also funded through ESSERS as presented. Is there anyone on the committee that has any comments or questions? Anyone on the full board have comments or questions? If you'd like to move this on to the full board for approval, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. N. Right? The Board of School Directors approve HMH into Literature 6 to 12 proposal of a one-year duration as presented, also funded through ESSERS. Does anyone on the committee have questions? Is this a new resource? Can you just, I know, you might as well just hang out up there for a while.
So grammar is already part of the curriculum. This is a resource that will be utilized to help support the grammar lessons that are through 6 through 8. Because grammar is part of every English standard all the way through 12th grade. So this will be that resource.
Thank you. Does anyone else?
Yeah. From what I researched real quick, it's a pretty comprehensive program. According to board policy 105, is this a pilot or is this just a resource?
No, there's a resource because.
It's just a resource.
It's just a resource because, again, the grammar is part of the standards that are being taught. It's part of our English classes. So this is just a resource that teachers will utilize to deliver the grammar component.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if you'd like to move this on to the full board for approval, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now that was N, and he just talked about grammar, so I just want to make sure I've got this right. Now we're at O, which is the Sadlier Grammar Workshop quote. Oh, it's elementary. Got you. The grammar workshop quote for grades 2 through 5 is presented, also funded through ESSERS 3. Is there anyone on the committee that has any questions? Anyone on the full board have questions?
Yep, just again, it's a resource because Open Court already has the grammar, so this is just an added resource.
Add a resource enriching the grammar.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone, I'm sorry, if you'd like to move forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we have item P. Recommended the Board of School Directors approve the Voyager Sopris Learning Quote as presented. Does anyone on the committee have any questions? Anyone on the full board have any questions or comments? Okay, if you'd like to move this on to the full board, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, item Q, mystery science, that I keep saying this wrong. The Board of School Directors approve the mystery science for grades K through 5 for the 24-25 school year. Does anyone have any questions on the committee? Anyone on the full board have any questions? Okay. If you would like to move this on to the full board, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. This will move on to the full board. Item R. Recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the IXL Learning Renewal Quote for IXL site licenses as presented. And I know that this included a discount for bundling, which I've learned, Dr. Rubarczyk, thank you for continually renegotiating existing contracts and getting discounts for bundling. I appreciate it. And then this is also in an effort to get this covered through the ESSERS 3. Okay. And is there anyone here who has any questions on the committee? Anyone on the full board? Excellent. If you'd like to move this forward on committee, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are there any objections? No? I didn't hear you say yes, Elgin, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, then this will move on to the full board as well. Item S. Recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the purchase of extra math premium licenses as presented, which is $500 per school, and they're giving us 6 through 12 at no charge, so only being billed for the 5 elementary schools. I'm assuming this is also your negotiating skills at hand. Oh, Ms. Anstelli, thank you for her negotiating skills. Does anyone here on the committee have any questions or comments? No? All right, anyone on the board? Okay, and please say yes if you'd like to move this forward to the full board.
Yes.
Yes. Item T, recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the Saddleback EDU publishing quote as presented. Title I funds will be used for this purchase. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the committee? Anyone on the full board? Okay, if you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, that will be moved to the full board for approval. Summer school. Recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the following Westchester University students' field experiences for the summer school program as presented. I'm not going to read all their names. Does anyone have any questions? No? Does anyone, I'm sorry, on the full board have questions? No? Okay. If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that will move on to the full board meeting. I can say my alphabet. Where am I now? V. Newsella renewal for social studies at the intermediate and cash for $9,609.98. Is there anyone here who has a question on the committee? No? Anyone on the full board? Nope. If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. W, News Bank renewal, annual subscription for social studies for the 24-5 school year renewal. Does anyone on the committee have questions, comments? No. Anyone full board? No. If you'd like to move us forward, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. You're all tired of hearing my voice, I am. All right. X, Common Lit School Essentials 24-27 renewal. For grades 8 to 12 in the intermediate and the high school. Does anyone have questions or comments on the committee? Nope. Anyone on the full board? If you'd like to move this forward to the full board, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Why? Recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the purchase of the Carolina Biological Pilot Materials and approve the pilot agreement as presented. And this was, we're paying for the 4 kits, 2 for kindergarten, 2 for first. We're adding additional 8 kits. This is also funding through ESSERS that was previously presented. Does anyone have any questions on the committee? Anyone on the full board? If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Z, the Board of School Directors approved the purchase of Scholastic Classroom magazines for grades 1 to 5, also funded through ESSERS. Does anyone have questions on the committee? Anyone on the board? If you'd like to move this forward, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. AA, that the Board of School Directors approve the purchase of open court reading for K to 5 as presented. This is also through ESSERS. Does anyone on the committee have questions? No? Anyone on the full board have questions? If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. BB, Committee for Children, that the school board of directors approve the purchase of the second step program for elementary, middle, and high school, which is a 5-year license as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions or comments?
This is also being paid through
I remember your presentation on this, yes. Okay, so this is also ESSERS. Anyone on the full board have questions? If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. CC, recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the purchase of iPads, Apple computers for students in K-5, also through ESSERS, as presented. And does anyone on the committee have questions or comments? No. Does anyone on the full board have questions or comments? If you'd like to move this forward, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. DD, that the school board of directors approve the 24-25 draft student code of conduct. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the committee? Yes. Okay, I guess I'll start. Michelle Snyder. I think we might need you at the microphone if you may come and help us out. Take your time. I don't want to lose my place. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I didn't know if you wanted to start with just a brief overview. It's just, I obviously have read it. I'm sure we've all read it. It's a lot. It's a lot. So do you want to just kind of give a brief overview of like what's changed for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So one of the changes that was made to the overall format of the document and the length of the document. And some of the items that were removed will be replaced in a student handbook or a future handbook that we're going to publish. And I also removed a lot of the legal definitions because one of the tasks that I was assigned was to try and make it more user-friendly, and I felt like that information could be better served on our website. So I took that information out to make the document more user-friendly. And just so you know, the work was done really, and some of the recommendations for change that I'll point out was done through the work in collaboration with the administrators and the students and the teachers as well. So I just wanted to point that out as well. So if you look on, hold on and let me, this is the balancing act. Okay. If you look on page 5 through 8, and it may be different because you're looking at it electronically, I'm looking at a hard copy, but what I'm looking at here are the rights, expectations, and responsibilities section. And everything in that section remains the same with the exception of I added language for district administration and school board because I took it right from our board policy and our administrative regulations. So that was not in previous codes of conduct, but I added that language. And that appears on page 8 in my copy, hopefully similar to yours. Then if I can turn your attention to page 8 through 10, I tried to make it flow a little bit better, and I also added numbered paragraphs to help the community and parents be able to find things better and make it more ADA compliant. So that's why you'll have numbers. But on page 8 to 10, you will see that I added preventative measures. And these were also found in our previous code of conduct with the exception of the addition of restorative justice and some of the definitions for restorative practice. So I added that information because, again, training will take place this summer, and I added a little bit more definition under restorative practice. And if I'm skipping pages, it's because nothing has changed in those pages. Let me flip over here. Now moving to page 12, I wanted to point out that we're keeping the restorative practice centers, which were designed to help restore and repair any damages that were done to the school community. And we use several resources and restorative practice coaches to help students do that. But at the recommendation of both the administrators and some of the teachers, we added back in-school suspension as well as another level for students. And in-school suspension has benefits because it keeps students in school. It still counts towards our students with disabilities, discipline totals, but it does allow academic focus and behavior focus as well. So we added that back at the request of our teams. And then moving right on to page 15 through 17, looking at levels of infractions and disciplinary consequences. The levels of infractions were always in our code of conduct previously, but what I tried to do is make it more clear and define the levels of infractions a little bit more. So that's the change there, and then I added levels of consequences in a similar format to the levels of infraction. So there were consequences in a giant list before, and I felt like this may help to clarify which recommended consequences could go with which level of infraction. So I helped clarify that. Sorry about this. Okay. Then going to page 19 through page 30, that's the matrix of infraction and disciplinary consequences. And that matrix was in the old code of conduct, but if you'll recall, it was a long list and it had a lot of columns and it was very, I think, difficult to read. So what I did was I took our infractions and I alphabetized them, and I took some of the things that were repetitive or similar, and I grouped them under these infractions. And so you will see that this now flows in a very concise way. And I also provided under each of the infractions a description of the infraction and the level of consequence, but those are recommendations that administrators can choose from, like the examples of action. Not the levels will stand firm, but the examples of administrative actions. And then if I could draw your attention to page 20, bullying and bus violations used to be located in our code of conduct, but it came in a section called rules and procedures. And it made more sense to embed it in here because there was, certainly disciplinary consequences that could come from that pending investigation. So I put that in there, and especially for our elementary and middle who deal with a lot of bus misconduct. So I put it right back in here. And then also on page 20 and 21 for class cuts, again at the request of teachers and administrators, we developed examples of leveled consequences that we provided there and took language right from our attendance policy, our administrative recommendations in particular on attendance, so that appears here as well. And then if you turn over to page 22, I defined the difference between defacing school property and vandalism. Defacing school property means minor damages, where vandalism means major damages and costs. And I also added restitution into the description and into the actions. Dress code violation, again, was another recommendation from the team. And at the request of teachers and administrators, they wanted to add more specific language to the dress code, which appeared in previous codes of conduct. So that's where that language came from. On page 23, I added endangering the health, safety, and welfare of others, which again, that's one of the subsections that encompasses a lot of the repetitive and other infractions that were listed, so they're grouped in there. I want to point your attention to the most notable change, which is possession of mace, pepper spray, and that language in there at the very bottom, other dangerous substances. possession is taken away from the weapons policy, and we'll talk a little bit about what constitutes a weapon is really discharging pepper spray, mace, or any other dangerous substances in the commission of a crime. So that's in the weapons policy now. And then on page 25, in prior codes of conduct, particularly along the lines after the COVID pandemic, because I think we went to a more digital platform, we had pages and pages and pages of violations of technology, and so I added that back into our code in this language. So that's there, and I followed the school board policy 237 for that language there as well. On page 26, you'll see lates to school, leaving the property, and lates to class. These were recommended changes from teachers and administrators. So it's a little bit of a different format in that the disciplinary actions are listed in the definitions, and that was at the request of staff. I also added on page 26 minor altercations, and that really works nicely with our PBIS initiatives and at the request of our elementary principals. On page 27, into the code, we added operation of motor vehicles and defined the different levels there. It was in there, but it wasn't as defined as it is in this section. So that's page 27. Page 29 to 30, I think we talked a little bit about, but I wanted to make sure that it's important enough to repeat that in the weapons policy, the language was changed to include discharge of pepper spray in the commission of a crime. And it further states that investigation of discharge of pepper spray will be investigated, and then if there are additional disciplinary actions that need to take place, that's what we'll do. So that's under weapons. I added on page 30, police notification guidelines. I believe that both Chief Galbraith and the administrative team were recommending that language in the code of conduct, and we added that there. So you'll see that. And it extends over to page 32. And then again on page 32 to 33, I updated the freedom of expression and added language from board policy under letter B, numbers 1 through 7. And then finally, on page 34, I added playground rules that were at the request of the elementary administration. And I added number 7 on page 35. We had language about video and audio surveillance, but it only pertained to the buses and not general to the buildings as well. So I added that language as well. There were also, there were no changes then to the attendance policy nor to the signature acknowledgement sheet for parents. Once this draft was completed, I circulated it to the administration, to our solicitor, to our superintendent and assistant superintendent, and our admin team, including special ed supervisors, and to Brenda, Director of Special Education, for review and feedback. I went through that pretty quickly. Do you have any questions that I can go back and answer?
Yeah, I was just wondering how many students or parents gave their input.
So we advertised our community meetings. There was one parent that came who is also a teacher, and also Robin Seagreaves came to the parent night. Okay. There were no recommendations that were given on the open forum charts that I posted online either from parents.
Do you think we should give them another opportunity? And I don't know, because how did you get the information out there to the community? Was it enough should we give them another opportunity?
So typically what we do, we advertised it online and through our social media platforms, and all the principals put it into their weekly messages, and it was done over a 3-week period. It was advertised too, so I created the s'more invite, and it was done that way, and I believe that I also sent a school messenger as a reminder. Typically what we do is we do that pre-work and invite the community. We invite teachers and administrators to give feedback prior to bringing the document to your level. So once it's completed, That's typically what we do.
The other question was how many administrators and staff participated?
So the administrators was the entire team, both elementary and secondary, and they were assigned specific tasks, and they operated as a focus group in that they looked at and reviewed surrounding school districts' code of conducts, and we pulled out things that we liked that maybe we did not have in our code, and then we talked about our code in particular, what to keep, what to change. And so every administrator participated in that. I had 25 teachers participate, and I offered each level of teacher 2 dates to come in and participate, and we had conversations, went through the current code of conduct, and they provided feedback and information based on the code of conduct that we currently have for this school year.
That was what you showed the board. Is that the same thing you showed
The
board?
feedback that you have, yes, in the executive,
I mean, prior to that, I think you gave us an example of other school districts?
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. And the only other thing I'd say, this is so silly, but in 6D, I think you mean mulch, not, unless I can't say instead of leave the mulch on the ground.
6D.
6D, I know that.
What, do you know what?
It's leave the mulch on the ground. Is it mulch? Is that
Mulch, okay, yes.
I know that's
Thank you for finding that. I probably read it so many
Usually
times I
Liz
didn't
used
see
to
it, but
say.
thank you for telling me that. I'll fix it.
Does anyone else on the committee have questions?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
No, no. I'll hold for now. We can open it up. I do have more questions.
Good, can you tell me a little bit more about the Restorative Practice Center? Do you have any data, how often it's used? And is there a particular curriculum that is put in place for when the students do come, that there are certain ways that they can demonstrate that they have been restored to go back into the classroom?
I don't have data with me. We do have a particular curriculum that we use. It's through Navigate 360, and that program is an online learning program that gives MIDI modules and lessons geared to specific behaviors that need to be repaired for the students. The restorative practice centers are staffed by members from one of our contracted services, and they're trained in restorative practices. And their goal, they act as diagnosticians, if you will, and they're tasked with not only looking at that behavior, but a student's whole picture, attendance, grades, that particular infraction and any others, and they work to help restore whatever the infraction was, and then return the student to learning. They also involve the teacher to have conferences to help in the classroom and allow students to learn. It does need, I will say this, it does need a procedural guide, which is another thing that I'm working on this summer.
And I guess the reason why I asked the question was the data would demonstrate the effectiveness of the restorative practices. And if without that data, we have no idea no way of determining whether the success, particularly with the equity study coming out, demonstrating the huge imbalance in regards to disciplinary actions, that data would be vital to understand whether or not what is taking place is working, need to be retooled. Do we need to evaluate the contractor company that is doing this particular process in the schools to see where the leak is in order to be able to address that inequity there? That make sense?
Yes, it does.
Good.
Oh, wait, can I? Oh, sorry.
Still in committee. But I'll give you a turn, don't worry. Since he was talking about the restorative, I wanted to piggy on that too. How many of our buildings have this capability now?
Every building has a restorative practice center. There was one vacancy at the end of the year in, I believe it was Scott Middle School.
Do
But
we have an approximation of how many kids have gone through that experience?
again, I don't have the
10 or
number.
hundreds, you know, like a,
Yeah, I don't have numbers. I did not
Okay.
come with numbers, but I can find out for you.
okay.
is the same contracting company for all the schools for the restoration practice centers?
Yes, it is.
Similarly, can you just speak to the restorative justice piece and how that's being implemented, rolling out?
Sure. So this summer, we are working with the Chester County Intermediate Unit to provide restorative justice training to the administrative staff. And it works to provide counseling or conferencing services, again, to help restore students and send them back to school in lieu of an out-of-school or in-school suspension.
And I guess this is just more of a comment than anything else. I understand the restorative aspect, the restorative practice, but there might be a need for more of a transformative aspect within the district. And I mention that particularly looking at the data from the equity study. If so much of what we are experiencing from the imbalance of disciplinary actions is structural or systemic, the only way to be able to address that is going to be through transformative methods, meaning an overhaul and examining of systems, and not just a restorative practice, which typically only focuses on the action of the particular person committing the offense. So have we considered or thought about implementing more transformative notions within our disciplinary actions as to not just solely be focused on restorative practices? Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, okay. There's a section on, I think it's page 11 in mine. Under the corporal punishment piece, I'm sure this is an error. I'm sure that it says that the following are appropriate uses. It's disciplinary consequences and exclude. I think that was meant to be like the title of the next section. Right?
It could be. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
It could be a typo.
And then, I mean, just overall in this section, like, do we have to say things that we don't do in the code of conduct? Just to, you know, I didn't know, does corporal punishment need to be here at all?
It's been in the code of conduct, and it was reviewed by our solicitor, so.
To weigh in on that, it's not required to be in there, but what I can tell you is, Ms. Seegreaves, that the school code does actually reference school personnel's ability to use or to physically disengage students in certain situations and things of that nature. So I think the sentiment behind incorporating it, I can't speak historically, but referencing what's not done, there could be a place for it for the reader who's reviewing it, if that makes any sense.
Maybe I'm enthusiastic or optimistic. I would assume it's somewhere in our policy guidelines or just regular law student.
To answer your question, it's not a requirement that it be included in the code of conduct.
Let me take that sticky off. Okay. I think a lot of my other questions resolved around the police section, and maybe it's just because I don't understand the process, and I'm looking for clarity on who makes the definitions between what's required to be reported and then those discretionary items.
Hang on, I'm getting to that section again, if you don't mind. One second. Yep, I got it. So typically what you see are violations that are in our crimes code and that are level 4 offenses that go to the police because they're more serious infractions. And then the discretionary items, administrators do have the discretion, and sometimes the parents will request police notification at that point, and we allow for that to occur. So that is And in working with Chief Galbraith, who reviewed this list with me, and we created it together, those were the infractions and notifications that he suggested as well.
So the decision to refer in the first place, if it's not one of the mandatory, is administrative? Is that correct?
Yeah, it rises, if the infraction rises to the level that we believe that police should be consulted, it doesn't necessarily always result in police involvement, but certainly it could rise to the level of discussion. It could also be referred, if we needed to a diversion, to our diversion program that we have. So it doesn't always equal charges, but certainly a conversation.
I guess when I say administrative level, it's the administrator who goes, this needs to be referred. And
Yes,
at that point, it's out of administration's hands. What happens?
Well, not necessarily,
Isn't
again.
that what this describes in here?
Yes, so it would be, but when the police, we also have a working relationship with the police officers as well. So we would talk through the discretionary ones, and then that's when we would decide, not me as an administrator, but the police, if they were going to get involved. And it doesn't always lead to charges in the discretionary.
So these were created, not, the mandatory ones, when you say mandatory, I'm assuming, is that based on law?
Yes.
Okay. And then the rest are just what our police department chief and administration together
yes.
have decided?
They still could be crimes, depending upon the level of infraction.
You said the parent request, you mean of the victim or of the person committing possibly a?
Sometimes of the victim.
Okay.
Mostly, yes.
Are we required to do that, or would they be able to just press charges individually?
They could press charges individually.
Does anyone else have questions along that line? Anyone in the committee? We still haven't moved off the committee, have we? I mean, I'm happy to open it up to the rest of the board.
Yeah,
If you
I'm happy to
wanna-
open up as well.
Yeah, let's open it up to the rest of the board. It looks like we have a lot of questions.
I think they're eager.
Go ahead and ask questions. Next.
I'm gonna go back to the restorative practices thing. And I never actually heard of SAP, but then when I kind of dug into it a little bit, I found out that we contract that service out to some Devereaux or something. Is that true?
That's correct.
Is it in every school? Is that there's the high school?
It's mainly in the secondary schools. We do
Okay.
have the ability and capacity to go down to the elementary, and we have to get training for staff. The training is at no cost, and we need to train teachers to be involved on our student assistance programs.
Right. Because I hear that works. It works well, and the lady who does it, but we had to cut costs for that. But that would be as we're going to be, finalizing a budget, if that's what's important, instead of cutting costs, that seems to be a need. And if it worked, I'm only addressing it because we're using it, but I also don't want to have it in there and we need more resources that way.
Well, keep in mind too, the student assistance program, it's a referral process.
Okay.
It's typically for mental health and for drug and alcohol. That's typically the purpose for it, and parents have to agree to it. And once they agree, what the Devereaux counselor does is then provide an assessment, and it's I would say like an intake, if you will.
Okay.
And then they'll recommend resources and work with the family's insurance and help them connect with services. So, but we can't move forward if a parent does not give permission.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. peer mediation. I've actually never, when did this start in the district?
Peer mediation, like student to student, is not in the district at this point. It is peer mediation with a climate coach. So if I need to clarify that, then I can do that.
Yeah, because it just read,
I'm seeing it through your lens at this point, but it's through an adult in the room. It's not student to
yeah, because I was
student.
gonna doesn't a student need training if we're doing
Yeah,
peer-to-peer?
yes. I'm seeing it through your lens. I'm writing it down.
All right, I just want to make sure, like, it sounds cool, but like,
Right.
I just want to make sure.
Nope,
we're
understood.
consistent. What? Yeah, yeah. And then, does the restorative justice or all of them, is it consistent across the schools and the buildings?
That is the goal, yes, for it to be consistent across the school and the buildings. That's the reason why the professional development is going on and has been going on last year and into the summer, and again, it'll go forward this year. The plan is to have it consistent, work with the administrative team and with all of the staff as the level 1 interventions for teachers in classrooms and help them to build relationships and rapport with students.
And last thing on this topic is there a way in each building that you can track, and you might have mentioned it when you were talking with Mr. Bailey, when restorative practices are like given, is there a way to track that within each building?
So it's interesting that you ask that. That is one of the things that we talked about, myself, the trainer at the IU, and the person that oversees our school improvement. We talked about a way to measure the implementation and the fidelity of that, and we're working on a tool now that will be able to do that.
That's great, because when they get to, a level where we have to see them, it's not always easy to see what progressive discipline was done. So then we feel a little stuck, I think. Well, I feel a little stuck. That just came, this is all great, but if there is no evidence of that happening or documentation of it happening, it doesn't feel like it's put into place. So I just think that's really important.
Can I ask a related question?
Yeah, please.
So in the Director of DEI job description, this relates to this. I'm coming back.
Okay.
It says oversees restorative practices across the district in that job description for the DEI director. Is this what we're referring to, that they will actually oversee restorative practices and restorative justice? Okay. I just want to ask that and clarify that for the board as well then.
I think having one person dedicated to that, and especially within that position, could only be beneficial.
Any more on that restorative practice thing? Oh, nothing? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Sorry. Hey, how about Liz ask you your question?
Okay. I have two. One, Director Seagreaves already mentioned, but I wanted to go back to it, maybe because I'm a nudge about specificity. But on page 11, when we talk about corporal punishment, to be clear, corporal punishment is punitive as a consequence for an infraction. It's generally associated with deliberately trying to inflict pain. So obviously that's something we don't want to promote and accept, and that's clearly articulated there. Where this section then gets confusing is we then try to talk about all of these things that aren't corporal punishment and are an appropriate use of force, which is okay to say, like, let's be clear that you shouldn't confuse corporal punishment with these appropriate uses of force to protect, de-escalate a situation, protect the students, protect the school community. That's all fine. But then at the end of that section, we again say something about like a consequence for an infraction. And, sorry, I have to scroll back up to it. Because I was down at the other thing that is my hot button issue. Disciplinary consequences and exclusion from school. So what does appropriate force have to do with disciplinary consequences or exclusion from school? And, you know, Robin, maybe you were gracious when you called this a typographical error. I don't know. What appropriate force would be needed as a disciplinary consequence that isn't considered corporal punishment? And what does exclusion from school have to do with appropriate force?
Understood. It very well could be a typo without seeing the previous document, and I was just looking to see if I brought it, and I did not.
That's okay.
So I will
please take
definitely do that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I will
Please
do
take a
that.
close look at
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to address, and anybody who remembers when my eldest was at the intermediate high school would not be surprised to have me bring this up, since I led a student meeting with staff on this particular issue, and that's dress code. So I understand that there was feedback from staff that dress code should be reincorporated into the code of conduct, and then there was a request for more specificity in dress codes. However, many districts are moving away from gender-related specificity in dress codes because it's been found to be sexist. I will also point out that there are studies, such as one published in Education Weekly in 2022, that are supportive of moving away from structured dress codes as they predominantly are applied. Those violations are applied to students of color and socioeconomic disadvantaged students. And I just want to ask a question. As a parent of teenagers, well, my eldest is now 21, but, you know, it's kind of the same thing. How are crop tops a problem? If a midriff is exposed because somebody's wearing a crop top, like, I don't understand how that impedes education. And I am pulling out the midriff thing as an example because it is one of the most common things that has actually been eliminated from dress codes around the nation as districts have moved to more progressive policies that, you know, again, try to eliminate racial and gender bias in their code of conduct. So I would suggest going back and looking at the prior code of conduct and asking some questions, and if you want me to send you the link to that Education Weekly article, I can. But I'm really against the types of dress codes that get applied in a way that's not uniform, and particularly target women, and make it their responsibility to preserve the educational environment for everyone else, and treats them like their bodies are weaponized. Like I said, it's a hot button issue. If you talked to me when my kid was in high school, you're not surprised. That's it.
I'll add to that. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. But then there's also, oh wait, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I agree with everything that you just said. And I lost my train of thought because it was such a great speech. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't understand spaghetti straps. I mean, I understand why, you know, I understand in a way the midriff thing, but like, doesn't, I mean, I don't know. But you make a very valid point, Ms. Muirhead. Anybody else on that section?
I can talk on that a little too. I mean, just from experience, if you take me back to 8th grade and I got a really bad perm, it was devastating. I couldn't just wear a hat for the day. Remember perms? Hats, I don't understand the distraction if someone can show me research that a baseball hat is some horrible thing. My son wore one almost every day of high school, even though it was against the rule, and never got in trouble. And it's difficult and time-consuming and tedious for teachers to have to pick and choose which kids they're going to say something to, because honestly, my white son walked around with the hat on and nobody ever said a word, but his people that didn't look like him people said things to them. And that just is another opportunity for people being treated differently here. And honestly, it's, like I said, super time-consuming for such small things that are just part of people's personalities and no distraction to anyone.
That's what I lost my train of thought. I wanted to address, the hoodies, because I've been in the schools where, hoods are up, and teachers try, and they try, and they try, and even administrators, they try, and they try, and they try, and at what point, they just let it go, and then kids do it over and over again. It's great that we're saying this, but then I would love to hear from administrators on it.
So I can just speak,
To be fair.
I can't speak to your son's situation, but I can say that hats and head coverings and hoodies are a security issue within our schools. When there's a situation, and it might be that we need to look at a camera or some kind of footage, sometimes it impedes the identification of that person. And so when we go to safety summits that occur within the county and within the tri-state area, they usually happen in the fall and in the spring, that is something that is brought up as a concern. And it is a struggle, but sometimes, if something's a struggle doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. Sometimes we just have to figure out how are we going to do it, but that doesn't mean to ignore it completely. But with that, it's a security, just so that you're aware. That was the inception of it, and that was what was shared with us.
Right. So when you had these meetings and administrators and teachers all spoke into that, was there any solutions that came from those meetings? I just see Brian back there, and I'm like, what do you guys do? What do you think is the best thing? Or, even you, Ms. Snyder, what is a solution? She's not wrong. It is a safety issue, so what do we do? The problem is that we have it in here, and then kids they keep having their hoods on,
I think, again, educating students and being proactive it works best with older students and even middle school students. They'll tell you. They know it's a safety issue. Once you tell them that and you explain why, and it's for identification purposes and a need to be safe in our schools, they support especially the hats and hoodies, and they will do that. So really, it's about training and having conversations with students and having those relationships and rapport.
Okay. All right.
To personalize that, you know my sons.
Mm-hmm.
They were all good kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, Evan wore a baseball hat every day. I'm sure if you pull up any video of him before he graduated, he'd have a hat on.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you fairly apply discipline when it's so random as to who, gets called out for it? How can that be fair and equitable?
Well, again, I believe that that's the first go-round. I don't want anyone to be suspended really for a dress code violation. Could it be considered insubordination eventually? I guess. But really what you want to do is you want to restore and educate and teach. That's the whole point of restorative practice. So empowering teachers to be able to do that at the classroom level so that you can have a conversation in open forum. And kids may say, I don't see what the big deal is about wearing a hat. And when you explain why, then most of them will agree. Sometimes it's a give. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you can do, but that's why I see those level 1, level 2 is really about the restorative nature and education with the students.
Anyone else on dress code?
I struggle with the safety aspect when we say it's a safety issue. I think it can be a safety issue in certain situations, but to say that it's a safety issue all the time, I think that's where I get a little bit a little stickler. If we're going to actually be using words properly to say it's always a safety issue, would be a little bit of a contradiction. I understand the times that it could be a safety issue, but also in those times where you're looking to identify someone, there's other ways of identifying someone outside of the hat or the hoodie. And that's not to say it's not a potential safety issue, but I think we're kind of resting our whole argument on this safety dynamic when we are struggling mightily to find a solution for this particular problem. Maybe we should look at it a little differently, would be my comment.
I think Holly sent it to us, that when I look at the peer mediation, the senators, PA senators, they're introducing legislation to have youth-based courts. So just something to think about.
Thank you.
Are we done with that?
Avoiding, just to avoid redundancy, I'm not going to repeat what Director Muir had said, but I just want to put my voice in agreeing with you in the clothing conduct, just so you understand there's additional board members that agree with that. I also just want to.
I'm sorry, did you say clothing or code of conduct in general?
Specifically with the clothing.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Separate from the hat issue.
Thank you, okay.
The prior comment. And before, not that we're moving on, I do just want to state, because two of our directors stated this, I think one thing that just keeps coming back, and this is just a word of encouragement, is that I think we constantly have to be looking at not how many voices are at the table, but whose voices. So when we're looking at teachers at the table, when we're looking at a parent at the table, or students at the table, I think we constantly have to be asking ourselves, what voices are at the table? And I'd rather have, 5 voices at the table if they're diverse students than 25 students if they're all female, or if they're all male, or if they're all black, or all white, or et cetera. So I just want to remind us and encourage us that as we're building these things, like what, conduct prevails or opinions prevail around clothing, whose opinion are we getting that from? And just, I'll stop there. Just, I think we have to be more intentional. And I'm not sure about these groups, the demographic of these groups specifically, but in the future, I'd love to know up front, not that 25 kids were participating, for example, but what was the demographic of those 25 kids? And are we hearing and having all voices at the table within our district? So.
There's just one other thing I wanted to clarify, as Donna touched on it at the very beginning, the notification and review process. I know that you mentioned teachers were involved. I think there was a couple sessions thrown out for them, and they were after school, is that
Yes.
right? And then that was the same format that we went through as a board. When you gave us a presentation, you gave them like the old one and then some examples?
Yes.
And got feedback?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the same presentation that I did with the community that you were involved with.
With me?
Yes, and the other lady, but yes.
Okay.
That was the same for the teachers.
So since this has been drafted and published, is there another time or opportunity to now have them weigh in on the final, proposal?
It's not, we've not done that. We can put it out for published and have people make comments now online. We've done that before. That's typically how we've done it in the past. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's how we've done it in the past.
I mean, teachers too, specifically.
Yeah.
Now that it's, because it's hard to give feedback when you're not looking at what the actual proposal is. You can give feedback on what happened before and what you like about some of these other things that you presented. And you did a great job at incorporating so many of these things. And I know this seems all very hard and negative, which is, it's very valid and important feedback. But I see the work that you did. I mean, as I'm just going to say, as I would like there to be more interaction, one more chance for the public and teachers specifically to now look at what this final is and to have I don't know if it's a work session, I don't know what it is. Something, there needs to be a little more working and a few more voices at the table, in my opinion. But I don't know if my committee, I don't know where you are. I don't know where we go from here, but go ahead, Elgin.
I'm sorry, I absolutely agree. I have a hard time wanting to implement any of these strategies and any of these things within the code of conduct with a severe, huge absence of community voices expressing themselves. And again, I'm not using that language in accusatory towards you or anyone else who implemented these things to say that you somehow dropped the ball and did something nefarious or whatever the case may be. What I'm saying is, if we want a community to begin to trust us as a unit, we're going to have to figure some way, I don't have an answer for it, but some way for their voices to be heard and to come to the table, because their children are going to be the ones ultimately affected by the code of conduct. I don't know how to do it. I don't have any suggestions. I just know that when I'm reading the feedback, I don't see any feedback from parents, largely because there was no parents at the stakeholders meeting.
So there were parents that RSVP'd, just to be clear. And there were parents that did say that they were going to come, and they did not come. So I just want to make sure that that was said and stated. They did pre-register, and I believe it was about 10 people. And I was really excited to see some of my former students, and they did not come. So, yes, thank you for that feedback.
The board just did a survey that discussed discipline, and I'd like to wait and see if we could give some of that information or all the information about discipline to the administration, so you guys can look it over and see if anything can be applied or a pattern that, because that came from our administrators and teachers, and that was all feedback. So I think that would be helpful in if we don't just finalize this or move it on just yet, but like look at all of that data first. So if we're missing something, we can add it before we approve it. Thoughts, Ms. Seagreaves?
Yeah, so, just to be more clear, the board conducted its first climate survey that we're still getting the results together, so we don't have it all, but we see clearly that discipline is still, at the top of people's minds. Both, these were from teachers and administration. It was everyone in the school that filled not everyone did it, but a large group of responses were received from teachers. And part of it's also a disconnect a little bit between the board's, vision and mission regarding discipline and administration's, perspective of what they're looking at in this code of conduct. And we want to get into the same place. And this data is going to help us see those gaps, and also with our community. And as Elgin was saying, we don't have an answer yet, but it could start with us and us engaging more with our community individually to get their feedback, which we're all learning, and we're learning how do we do that and when do we do that, but that's a goal we want to start to work on.
I was thinking too, as school board directors, that we could reach out to our regions. We're it's easier for me to reach out to Region 1 and talk to them the way I want to talk to them. Hey, you need to do this, so that could be something we can help with.
Right, is it town hall the right way? I don't know what the right answer is. It's something we'll have to figure out together. But I think we're all recognizing that we even need to do a better job engaging with our community as individuals in our regions. So yeah, there was a lot of information regarding discipline from teachers, and I think that would be important data to make sure the teachers' perspectives are heard before we finalize this document. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? So I'll go ahead.
I just wanted to say, despite the passion that we have for elements of this, there are a lot of changes you've made to the code of conduct that are, moving in the right direction, and we'd be here all night if we called all of them out. So I don't want you to be discouraged by the fact that we think it can still be better.
Thank you.
Yes, and I thought I said that you did a great job.
You did.
A lot of these things.
You did.
You know, it did. It felt heavy, and
did.
we're sorry. We're not sorry. It's important to us, and we want to make sure it's right for everybody. And, I mean, so I want to move forward on the,
And it's absolutely important to all of us as well, that we get it right. So
and we do it together.
I think questions and dialogue are important, and that's fine.
Okay.
So I hope I answered your questions, and what I couldn't answer, the data and whatnot, I can certainly work on that for you.
Yeah.
And is it, just for clarity, is it a reasonable ask to pull together the data from that survey and for administration for you to have an opportunity to look at that? I'm just,
Also, too, I think,
no, I understand. I'm just putting that out there, is that,
I just think it's important to note, too, that last year we were behind in getting the policy approved, and it wasn't until October. I think it's important that this is a time-sensitive document, and we want to start the school year with it, and it sort of holds the training, some of the, not the restorative practice, but some of the things that we want to do with administration, because there are some differences in this code. So I'm not rushing. I'm just saying that we want to be mindful, too, because we don't have a meeting in July. So whatever we need to do it quickly so that, and with diligence, I get it, but, we are a little time sensitive, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that we want to make sure it's definitely
Correct.
for the school, and I think the whole board is in agreement with that. There was a transition last year for sure, and a lot going on, but we're not trying to hold it up for it to go past the beginning of the school year. We definitely want to see it
Great,
before the school starts.
great. Thank you.
So with all of that being said, as the committee, if you would like to move this forward, say yes. If you object, say no.
no,
No,
not yet.
not yet. Okay. Oh my goodness, I'm so close. The next is EE. Are you laughing at me? I approve. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Aperture. That is the access to social emotional learning testing for students in grade K through 7. Does anyone on the committee have comments, questions? Rest of the board, comments, questions? If you'd like to move this on, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And then we have the informational item, as always, the enrollment report update as of May 31st, 2024. So is there any old business? Any new business? Now public comment. Did she go to, we have Lori Shannon Bailey. Is she still here? Where is she? Oh, you're hiding behind him. I did not see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Robin. Good evening. Thank you very much for not approving the code of conduct. I didn't see anything on social media about a meeting, nor do the parents that I advocate for who have children that's been disciplined and suspended. So I'm very disappointed in the advertising and marketing process. I don't know how it happened, but I didn't see anything about it. And I'm very, very disappointed again that as one who stands before these meetings for the marginalized of this community, the parents that have not yet found their voice, many of whom children are suspended and have been disciplined unfairly. Didn't see anything at all, nor did the parents that I support see anything. And I don't know when the meeting was, but these last few weeks have been extremely busy with graduation and prom and things of that nature, and that's on parents' radar. So thank you all for being sensitive to the community, and that the community needs a voice at the table, and we want to be involved. You may not incorporate some things that we say. But yes, we do want a voice. One of the things I had noticed was on page 13, the language about parents being responsible for making sure that their children are enrolled in school. If I'm a drug addict, that's my thing, and I know the school board doesn't have anything to do with my being on crack cocaine. I don't use crack cocaine. I'm addicted to M&Ms, just for the record. But, you know, this really doesn't speak to the school district being concerned about helping parents. So I didn't like this when it was added to the Code of Conduct. I think this is new information, so that's language that I think we should take a look at. And then there's some language on page 33. Students are responsible for being aware of others' feelings and opinions and giving others a fair opportunity to express their views. Well, how does a kindergartner does that? How does someone in middle school does that or do that? So anyway, that's something I guess we can hold on. The item BB, Committee for Children, I did look at that. It looks like it's an SEL contract, which I think is good. I really appreciate the fact that the district is spending money on SEL. I'm advocating for a family who is suing the district because their child is not getting SEL services. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. The next meeting will be Tuesday, August the 13th, 2024, and I will adjourn the Education Committee, 8:27 p.m.
Here we go. Call to order. Welcome to the Policy Committee meeting for June 11, 2024. This evening, I note the presence of committee members Elgin Bailey, Laren Yacco, and myself, Donna Rowland. Shauna Maxwell and Holly Charest are not present this evening. We have a quorum, so we will move ahead with the meeting. I note that only committee members can approve agenda items moving to the full board agenda. Approval of the May 14, 2024 Policy Committee meeting minutes. Call for motion. Is it motion? Don't know, okay.
You
No
don't need
motion?
a
Okay.
motion,
You agree?
Director Rowland.
All in favor? Is that, yes, yes, okay, okay. Anybody not? Any noes? We good? Okay. All right. Agenda items, there's no presentations. Agenda items, our first agenda item is Policy 011, Principle for Governance and Leadership. If anybody wants to have any questions, if not, okay. Everybody in favor of moving on, say yes.
Yeah.
Any noes? Okay, we can go right to the next one. Okay. Our next agenda item is Policy 903, Public Comment in School Board Meetings. If anybody needs any extra details, if not, okay. All those in favor of just moving to the full board agenda? Yes? Yes? Okay, any no's? Okay, then we can move on. Look how fast I go. Our next agenda item is Policy 005, BOG-1, Board Standing Committees. Do we need any explanation, any more details? If not, does anyone on the committee have questions? If not, we can, let's see, would anybody like to make a question? Okay, anybody would like to say yes?
Yes.
No? Okay, am I wrong?
No,
Yeah.
we're
Yes, to
moving
move to the
full
full
board. Yep.
board agenda. Any no's? Okay. All right. Okay. The next one, the informal items, I guess. informational items. 326 AR 0 complaint process.
Just, we're going to be working on that next committee. It's just for people to know that we're, going to be,
Okay.
ARs don't need board approval. They typically tell the administrators how the procedure and the policy is going to run. This was suggested by our solicitors.
Okay, all righty.
So I lied.
Any old business? Any new business? Any public comment? There's none? No, there's nobody. Okay, all right. What time is it? Okay. Huh? All right, 8:30 PM. All right, thank you. I should have done the whole thing.
Do you want to lead the Finance Committee meeting?
Lickety-split.
All right. I'm going to call to order the Finance Committee meeting at 8:31 PM. We'll start with the approval of the May 14th, 2024 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. I note the presence of committee members, myself, Robin Seagreaves, and sitting in for Shauna Maxwell, Mr. Steve Wilson. Absent tonight from the committee are Shauna Maxwell and Jennifer Schott. We do have a quorum with Mr. Wilson sitting in, so we will proceed. Starting off with the approval of the minutes for May 14th, 2024. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections to the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 The minutes are so approved. We then move to our presentations. We have a proposed final budget from our finance director.
Okay, good evening and thank you. Tonight, I just want to share our final budget for the 24-25 school year. This will be a very brief presentation. Our numbers have not changed since our last meeting, but I still wanted to share tonight what those numbers look like. So what you see here is our proposed expense projections for 24-25. Give me 1 second to get there. So what you'll see is for salaries and benefits, we're projecting about 74.7 million. This is including, we were tasked last meeting to add a DEI position. So this also includes that in that position. And as Dr. Van Vooren mentioned, we are also requesting the approval of the creation of an elementary gifted teacher on the agenda tonight. So even with adding those positions, we still believe that we have enough in our budget for salaries and benefits to cover those positions and not make any changes. For purchase services, we are projecting 119.8 million. And as a reminder, that includes our IU, legal service, transportation, and charter schools, just to name a few. For supplies, we are projecting 10.5 million. That covers our general supplies, our electric and gas, books, and technology-related supplies. Property is for any expenses related to improvements of grounds and replacement equipment. We have that at about 1.4 million. Other objects, which includes our dues and fees, we have claims and judgments, and the interest portion of our debt service is projected at 10.7 million. And then finally, our debt service is projected at about approximately 14 million. So with all of our expense projections, we are looking at 231.4 million for the 24-25 school year. Looking at our revenues, we are projecting 150 million in local sources. We are looking at state sources of approximately 66.7 million. It is still uncertain what we will receive in state funding since the governor's budget could be delayed beyond the June 30th deadline. So each year we want to make the best estimate to determine what we could potentially receive in this area. We know that this could have an impact not only on state, but also how we look at our local tax increase. So this year we were very conservative. We've added about 1.76 million to this line. When it's all said and done, we know that there's a potential that we could receive more. That would be beneficial for us. That will just help us build our fund balance back up. The one thing that we try to avoid is coming in less, going higher and receiving less, because that's more detrimental for the district. So we look at this area very closely and make a determination based on what we think could potentially receive, and also being very conservative in how we look at that line. And then next is our federal sources at 10.1 million. So that brings us to a total revenue of 226.9 million, which puts us at a budget gap of about 4.5 million, which we are going to go ahead and recommend using our fund balance to bridge that gap. So based on the revenues and expense projections and using the 4.5 in our fund balance, you will see that that will decrease our fund balance to about 28 million. We do anticipate that number will continue to change as we finish out this school year, and then the completion of our audit will also give us final numbers for that. So again, we are looking to use 4.5 million of that balance. So with that, we are also looking at a proposed 2.5% tax increase that would bring our millage rate from 41.819 to 42.864. Again, we could have gone as high as 6.9, but we would try to be very conservative and look at all options and try to look for the least impact on our taxpayers. So we are here tonight at the final process of our budget, and that would be passing the budget here at our special board meeting following the committee meetings here tonight. I don't know if there's any questions in regards to what's been presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to say that, I think it is appropriate to strike a balancing act between trying to be conservative with the numbers, but not so conservative that we raise taxes unnecessarily.
Yes.
I think that, in a year where we were able to add more than $7 million to our fund balance, it seems appropriate that we should be able to use some of that to close the gap on our budget. And so I appreciate you taking some of the money needed to meet the expenditures and not putting that burden on the taxpayers. I recognize that a tax increase, no matter how small, will be a hardship for some of our residents. And it is very difficult to balance that against the need to fully fund education and support public education. I think the decisions we make every day, trying to decide what are the things that we truly need to do, how can we question the expenditures that we're making and make sure that they're doing the right things to help support the district, but do it in a fiscally responsible way, are what get us to this point. And it is, my wish that we as a board continue to scrutinize and that our director of finance continues to scrutinize expenses and try to make the right choices where we balance the needs of both stakeholders, both the students and the taxpayers. And I do feel like you did that this year, so I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other members of the committee have comments to make on the presentation?
I just wanted to thank you for your hard work and, granting our wishes within the budget and finding a way. We asked you to research that and try to find a way, and I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any board members outside the committee have comments or questions on the presentation? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. We will move on to the agenda. Starting with item A, financial statements, that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements and bills payable list as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the administration or wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay. Hearing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes. This item will move to the full board agenda. We move to item B, the General Fund Budget and Tax Resolution 2024-2025. That the Board of School Directors approve the General Fund Budget and Tax Resolution as presented in the amount of $231,400,000 for the 2024-2025 fiscal year with a real estate tax rate of 42.864 mils of the assessed local valuation, $4.2864 per $100 of assessed value, and a realty transfer tax of 0.5%, an earned income tax of 0.5%, and a local service tax of $5. Do any members of the committee have questions or comments for administration on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval at the special board meeting later this evening.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This item will move to the full board agenda. Item C, the school homestead farmstead resolution, that the Board of School Directors approve the homestead farmstead property tax reductions amounts in the amount of $390.93 per homestead farmstead with an assessed value exclusion of $9,105.54 per homestead farmstead as presented. I want to point out that this is actually an increase over the prior year. So we note in the public content that the tax reduction in 2023-2024 was $328.29. In 2024-25, it will be $390.93, which is a further reduction of about $60, and that would be an offset to a portion of the tax increase that we just moved to the full board agenda. Would any other board member would any other board member on the committee like to make any comments or ask questions on this item? Seeing none, would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay. Please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Item D, approval for authorization of budget transfers, that the Board of School Directors authorizes the administration to make final budget transfers and assignments for the completion of the 2023-2024 fiscal year financial reports with subsequent board approval of such necessary action at the acceptance of the final audited financial statements. And this all sounds very technical, but it's essentially just an administrative item that allows the finance director to make any necessary things that she needs to do to close out the books for the year and respond to audit comments. Does any board member on the committee have questions or comments on this item? Any other board members have questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
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 Moving on to item E, Chester County Tax Claim Bureau repository sale, that the Board of School Directors approve the repository sale of the following parcel as recommended by the Chester County Tax Claim Bureau as presented. Any questions or comments on this item? Any other board members have questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, please say yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
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 This item will move to the full board agenda. I'm going to group items F, G, and H. These are 3 tax assessment appeals that have been negotiated through the assistance of legal counsel that will allow us to settle tax assessment appeals in the ways that help preserve as much tax revenue for the district as possible. So these are that the Board of School Directors approve the stipulation for settlement agreement at 21 Waverly Boulevard, at 699 Victoria Drive, and at 110 East Stuart Houston Drive, Coatesville, as presented. Do any committee members have questions or comments on these 3 items? Any other board members have questions or comments?
Yes, can you explain what that is?
Yes, absolutely. So what happens is the tax revenue that we receive from a particular property is based on the assessed value, which is uses something called a common level ratio to make it equalized across the county. And what happens is as people look at their property, they may determine that their property's assessment is too high, and they may appeal that and try to get a market level evaluation that allows them to establish a different assessment for their property. If they're successful in doing that, that will generally result in lower tax revenue for the district. There can also be district-initiated assessment appeals where we see a property that we know has appreciated in value and is being under-assessed and is paying less tax than it should, and we could initiate an assessment appeal in that case. In both cases, the parties come together with the assistance of legal counsel for these types of properties and try to negotiate a fair market value that both parties can agree on. Generally, it's going to be higher than what the property owner wants it to be, and it's going to be lower than what the district wants it to be. If we did nothing, the appeal would likely go through at the property owner's assessment, and we would lose more tax revenue than we do when we negotiate these. So I would say that the negotiation process that legal counsel has done has preserved tax revenue that we might otherwise have lost through this process.
Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, good. Lori and I talk about this a lot, so, yeah.
Yeah, I got you set up and everything.
Ask me questions I know something about, I get excited. All right. Are there any other board members with questions or comments on these three items? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to move these items for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to CCIU, Marketplace Services Contract, that the Board of School Directors approve the 2024-2025 contract agreement with the Chester County Intermediate Unit to participate in its marketplace programs at the most recently adopted marketplace price schedule from July 1st, 2024 to July 30th, 2025 as presented. I'll just note that this is the CCIU price schedule that is going to the entire county. It's generally seen as being very, very fair in terms of the market value for the services that they provide. Any members of the committee have questions on this item? Any other board members have questions or comments? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
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 Okay. The CRES, item J, the CRES contract renewal, that the Board of School Directors approve the renewal of the July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 contract with CRES as presented. We note in the public content the services costs that are applicable from the 2023-24 school year and what they are for the 2024-2025 school year, and you can see that they're quite reasonable from year to year. Do any members of the committee have questions or comments on this item? Any other board members have questions or comments? Hearing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, this item will move to the full board agenda. Letter K, Criticare Nursing Services Renewal Agreement, that the Board of School Directors approve the renewal agreement with Chadds Ford Alternacare Criticare for the 2024-2025 school year to continue to provide healthcare staffing for our students as presented. Again, we've included the cost details and how they've changed from 2024 to 2025. Probably not a surprise that there's been a bit of a cost escalation in the medical services field that is reflected in the contract charges. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the administration or wish to comment on this item? Do any other members of the board have questions or comments? Hearing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
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 Okay. Letter L, Frontline Education Renewal of Forecast 5 subscriptions, that the Board of School Directors approve the one-year renewal of 3 Forecast 5 subscriptions, Budget Management Analytics, Comparative Analytics, and Financial Planning Analytics from Frontline Education, July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, at a total cost of $28,487.12 as presented. Lori said, please say yes. I need this to do my job. Again, we've tried to provide the cost details year over year. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to move this item to the full board agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Item M, Wiggins Shredding Inc. District Shredding Event. We have a number of these every year. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Wiggins Shredding to provide services for a district-wide shredding event at an estimated cost of $1,725 as presented. I believe this was initiated by the need to shred some documents in the administration building, and it's being incorporated to pull documents from other buildings as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have questions from the, for the administration or wish to comment on this item? Does anyone else on the board have questions or comments? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I am going to group all of the donations together for the expediency of the meeting. Letters N, O, P, and Q. Giant Food Store Commencement Exercises donation, Senior Award 2023-2024 donations, United States Deputy Sheriff's Association CASD Police donation, and the VFW Post 845 AFRJROTC donation. Are there any questions or comments from the committee members on these donation items? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? I want to thank everyone who is donating to our students. It is, much appreciated and really helps. If there's no other questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend these items for full board approval.
Yes.
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 Moving on to letter R, the creation of one elementary gifted teacher. This was explained previously, that the Board of School Directors approved the creation of an elementary gifted teacher position due to an increase in students in the gifted program. This will be in addition to the current elementary gifted teacher position. Any questions from committee members on this? Any questions or comments from the remaining board members? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Letter S, creation of PBIS team member positions, that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a PBIS Positive Behavior Intervention Support team member position. The team members are paid at a rate of $36, and there are 4 team members per school. The positions will be paid through Title IV funding. Are there any questions or comments from committee members on this item? Does any other board member have a question on this item? Okay. Are we good, Justin? Yes. Okay. Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
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 Letter T, creation of PBIS team lead positions. This team lead supervises the 4 team members at each school, 1 lead per school. Rates are the following: $1,350 for East Fallowfield and Reeseville, $2,450 for Kings Highway, Callan and Rainbow, $3,550 for Cache Intermediate High School, North Brandywine, and Scott 6th Grade Center. These positions will be paid through Title IV funding. Are there any questions or comments on these positions from committee members? Other members of the board have questions or comments? Seeing none, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item U, the creation of one Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. That the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, DEI. This position will be under the Act 93 contract and have a salary range of $120,000 to $170,000. The job posting and job description is attached. Does anyone on the committee have questions for the administration or wish to comment on this item? Any other members of the board have questions or comments on this item?
I just wanted to thank both of you for making this happen. The board was very vocal about wanting a DEI director, especially after the equity audit, so I appreciate it it happening. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you. Hearing no more questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, this will be moved to the full board agenda. We have informational items, account codes, legal fees, medical claims, and ESSER 3. Is there any old business? No? New business? Public comment? Public comment sheet? Nobody brought that to me. Laura, are you signed up to speak? I think so. Okay, go on up there.
You want to check, make sure?
I mean,
Because I could be lying.
I trust you. Okay. Yes, you are signed up to speak. Lori Shannon Bailey, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the legal fees, your comments about saving money and being diligent, pages 5 through 15 have to do with student issues. And I think that those are violations of special education issues. I think many of these students probably are not getting this education that they deserve. So if you start paying attention to why we are having so much money going towards student issues, that might be one way we can start saving money. This is a lot of money. I mean, pages 5 through 15. If we added all this money up, we could probably not raise taxes 2.5%. This is a lot of money for student issues. And if we look at the audit, there's a lot of discrimination going on. And a lot of it is from special education. A lot of it. Parents who can't read an IEP, don't understand special education laws. That's why I do this work, because the education of their children is important and they don't get the support that they need. So I would ask you to please consider looking at special education violations and how we're doing with the marginalized community in terms of those children that have IEPs, and how can we better support them and thereby saving more money for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. There's also a Hannah Capter.
Hello. For those of you who do not know, I am the current 1 elementary gifted support teacher that we have in the district. So I wanted to provide you with some additional perspective on why this gifted support teacher additional position is so needed. If we look back to August 31st, 2021, there were only 9 identified gifted students in Coatesville across all 5 elementary schools, grades K to 5, a total of 9. As of last Friday, there were 77. And for several years, for the first 3 years in the position, I was serving students across all 5 elementary schools and the Scott 6th grade center by myself. And it's really not fair to kids to have someone spread so thin across different grade levels and buildings. I care very deeply for my students, and I can't do everything they deserve when I'm spread so much. Over the past school year, we've tried using a high school gifted teacher and a STEM teacher to try to supplement some of that. But that's really not fair to the kids or to the staff members either. High school teachers and elementary teachers are not the same person usually, and the STEM teacher has a lot of other priorities to focus on. We really need someone else who's going to be fully dedicated to providing the support these elementary students need so much. We've made so much progress. Our universal screening process is helping to make the gifted program a lot more equitable because it's no longer only those students whose parents know enough to request an evaluation who are joining the program, but many different students that we're picking up through this process. And my supervisors know that I am constantly making suggestions, analyzing data, providing more input. I've been working closely with PDE with the recent Javits grant that they obtained this year to increase equity in gifted identification to help support diverse populations more equitably. And so we're making so much progress. And we absolutely do need another dedicated elementary gifted teacher to support these students.
Thank you so much for staying and sharing your thoughts. Very appreciated. Okay, that concludes public comment. Our next meeting is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. And with that, I adjourn the Finance Committee meeting at 9 p.m. And I will pass it off to my colleague who is leading the Operations Committee meeting.
I don't need to do a motion. Gotcha. Welcome to the Operations Committee meeting for June 11, 2024. This evening, I note the presence of committee members, myself, Elgin Bailey, Vice Chairperson Liz Murahan, Lauren Yako stepping in. Missing tonight, we have Holly Charest. We have a quorum, so we move ahead with the meeting. I note that only committee members can approve agenda items moving to the full board agenda. We have no presentations, so we're going to get right into agenda items. No, I'm not.
Mr. Bailey, if I can intervene, you do have the approval of the minutes from the preceding meeting.
Gotcha. Approval of the May 14, 2024 Operations Committee minutes. Call for a motion. Don't need a motion. Just approval of the minutes. Yes. Gotcha. Now I can go to agenda items.
I have no additions or corrections to the minutes.
I don't either.
Agenda items.
So the minutes will advance to the full board for approval.
Okay. Agenda items.
Yes.
Outstanding. We're going to move on to our agenda items. Our first agenda item is Modern Group Commons Unit Preservation. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Modern Group for Commons Unit Preservation for storage at the total cost of $4,473.40 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Next agenda item, Gallagher Power Wash Tennis Cleaning. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Gallagher's Power Washing to soft wash all areas of the 5 tennis courts at a total cost of $2,825 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
The item will move to full board approval, board meeting agenda. Next item, ICS relocation of water line at Reeseville Elementary. The Board of School Directors approved the request from ICS and the Coatesville Area School District to award a contract for relocation of the existing water line, water meter service pit, and cable service lines at Reeseville Elementary School to avoid conflict with the new building additions and to avoid a shutdown of service during the upcoming school year. We are awaiting proposal cost numbers and will be looking to use a public procurement system to award the work. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to?
I'm sorry. We do have the proposal for this one though, right? Because it's attached. We're not waiting for a proposal. This is the proposal. This item was amended to add a document, which I think is the proposal.
We have someone here this evening, our project manager, Bill Slaughter.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening, Bill.
He's been waiting all night.
I apologize for this being kind of an open-ended item. This is, information has come to us in the last couple weeks, so we're rushing to get this together. That proposal, if it is not attached, is in the amount of $147,660 to Twining Construction Company Incorporated for the relocation of those two lines.
Okay. That is what I see. Thank you. Okay. I'm good.
Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no question or comments, please say yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Thank you, Bill.
He can stay up there because I'm going to ask him a
Oh,
question.
okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't want him staying up there all long, you know how it is. Moving on to the next agenda item, Environmental Control Systems Incorporated Cash Hazardous Waste Disposal. The Board of School Directors approved the proposal.
It's the gas line, right?
I skipped D,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's
Let me
okay.
go back. ICS relocation of the gas line at North Brandywine. The Board of School Directors approved the preliminary request from ICS and Coatesville Area School District to award 2 contracts for the relocation of existing gas service line at North Brandywine Middle School to avoid a conflict with new building addition and to avoid a shutdown of existing service during the upcoming school year. The first contract would be to Pico Exelon for the installation of a new gas meter set on northeast corner of the building. The second contract would be to a to-be-named vendor for the extension of the gas line from the new meter location to existing service at the existing boiler room. We are currently awaiting proposal cost numbers and would be looking to use a public procurement service to award contract number 2. Contract number 1 is a sole source provider and can be performed by no other vendor legally. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item?
Yes. So I think we were hoping to have bids for tonight, but we don't have them in time.
So we did get a cost from PECO in the amount of $12,017.62 for their portion of it. We did get some budgetary estimates coming in today.
Okay.
Formal proposals are being sent in later this week and early next week. We anticipate the cost to be between $120,000 and $150,000 for the gas line relocation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, good.
Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no further questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Next agenda item, E, Environmental Control Services, Inc., Cash Hazardous Waste Disposal. The Board of School Directors approved the proposal from Environmental Control Systems, Inc. for the hazardous waste disposal of chlorine paint glycol from the senior high school for the total cost of $1,635 as presented. Does anyone in the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes. Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Agenda item G, UGI Energy Services, LLC, Coatesville Area School District Natural Gas Agreement. The Board of School Directors approved the customer agreement between Coatesville Area School District and UGI Energy Services, LLC, for PECO Schools Group pricing for natural gas from the sales period of July 2025 through June 2028 as presented. Does anyone in the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Item G, Craft Bus Company approval of the 23-24 summer bus runs. The Board of School Directors approved the list of bus routes for 2023-2024 summer school and ESY as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. H, Power School, Coatesville Area School District Power School Mobile Connector. The Board of School Directors approved the quote from Power School for the annual renewal of the district's Power School Mobile Connector from the period of June 1, 2024 to July 31st, 2025 at a total cost of $3,647.46 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. I, Power School SIS renewal. That the school board, the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Power School for the annual renewal of student information services for the district for the period of July 1, 2024 to July 31st, 2025 at the total cost of $117,242.00 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item?
No.
Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. J, Riverside Technologies, Inc., Coastal Area School District's Chromebooks. The Board of School Directors approved the quote from Riverside Technologies, Inc. for Coastal Area Schools HP G9 Chromebook with white glove services and 3-year ADP warranty at a total cost of $319,000 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. K, CDI Security Operations Center. The Board of School Directors approved the quote from CDI for Managed Security Monitoring, SOC, services including threat detection and remediation recommendations against district systems for a one-time setup fee of $9,600 and a recurring monthly cost of $12,055 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. CDI production server install. The Board of School Directors approved the quote from CDI for assistance deploying and migrating to a new production server and storage infrastructure for Coatesville Area School District at a total cost of $50,000 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. CDI Expert on Demand. The Board of School Directors approved a quote from CDI for Export on Demand, which provides computer-related support services as needed for a 12-month term, not to exceed the cost of $50,000 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please say yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. CDI District Backup Service. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from CDI for software-enabled data protection management for Coatesville Area School District for a 36-month term with a one-time fee of $6,996.73 and a monthly recurring total of $6,996.73 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please say yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Crown Castle District Fiber Network Renewal. That the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Crown Castle for District Fiber Network Renewal for a 12-month term starting July 1, 2024, at a total cost of $10,400 as presented. Does anyone on the committee have questions for administration or wish to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please state yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Harris Technologies, CAIHS ISPA system, that the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Harris Technologies for the IHPA system head and controllers using the existing building speakers for the amount of $47,633.18 and an estimated speaker replacement not to exceed $300,000 as presented. Does anyone in the committee have questions for administration or wish to like to comment on this item? Would any other board member like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing no questions or comments, please say yes if you agree to recommend this item for full board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
The item will move to the full board meeting agenda. Okay, we have no informational items, no old business, no new business, and no public comments. Our next meeting is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024.
Adjourn.
Adjourned. Adjourned.
What time?
At 9:17.
Perfect.
One more meeting.
I call to order the Coatesville Area School Board Special Meeting scheduled for June 11th, 2024. The reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Coatesville Area School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minutes should also note that the public notice was given for the meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Leon Yacco,
Here.
Steve Wilson,
Here?
Holly Charest,
She's excused.
Shauna Maxwell,
She's also excused.
Liz Muirhead,
Yes.
Donna Rowland,
Yes.
Robin Seagreaves,
Yes.
Elgin Bailey,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott,
At this moment, I would like to ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. To my colleagues, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda?
If I may, Madam President, I did want to make a quick executive session announcement. The board met in executive session yesterday, June 10th, 2024, to discuss 2 potential matters of litigation and 2 confidential personnel matters related to administrative employees. And that concludes the executive session report.
Thank you. Public comment. The board has requested all persons making comments on agenda items to list their name, address, phone number, and motion items on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute limit per person. The board does not take action or discuss items not appearing on the agenda. The board values public comment and wishes to convey that although board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda, they listen carefully and appreciate and value input from the public. The first speaker is Lori Shannon Bailey.
Thank you. Kudos to you all for deciding to hire diversity, equity, inclusion person, or not person, but employee. I do appreciate the consistency in your communication about it. Seems like you all may have been struggling in some of your earlier conversations, but I'm glad that you all powered through that because it is an absolutely important position. It might be one of the most important positions you all have ever approved. We have, as a district, struggled in this area of equity and inclusion. And so I am proud of you all for speaking up and showing up and keeping your eye on the prize in terms of this vital, important, and this position. So I will be watching closely and hopefully cheering you on as you hire this person. But thank you very much for being bold and courageous in making this critical decision. Are you concerned about the resignations? Dr. Miles, oh my goodness. What a loss, what a tremendous loss to our community. Heather Messenger, are you concerned? We had 7 teachers resigned earlier this month. We have 6 this month. Are you concerned about the turnover rate? I mean, I see we have new teachers being hired. Are you intentionally hiring teachers of color, which is what we need in this district? We're the most diverse district in Chester County. If you're not concerned about the turnover rate, you should be. I don't know what's going on, but this is concerning. This is very, very concerning. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Motion items for approval. Committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action and consent items, which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. Just want to confirm, are we pulling everything except policy? To you, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the board's pleasure. The budget we have to reflect how each individual board member votes.
Okay.
But other than that, it is up to the board's discretion on how you want to handle that.
Just pull them all? No, okay. Sorry, I apologize. We just talked about a few of them, so. Yeah, all right. Well, let me just, I'm going to pull A and D from finance. And I'm going to pull A from education. Anybody from any chairs want to pull any of their items?
Can you just repeat what you were
Yep.
pulling?
A and, from finance, A and D,
Okay.
and then under education, letter A,
Okay.
just so we can get a roll call.
Great, thank you.
I have no additional items.
Okay. Cool. All right. With the items now being removed from the consent agenda for individual vote, I now call for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Liz Muirhead,
Yes.
Elgin Bailey,
Yes.
Robin Seagreaves,
Yes.
Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Lear Nyako,
Yes.
Donna Roland.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Finance Committee, letter A, the General Fund Budget and Tax Resolution 2024-2025. That the Board of School Directors approve the General Fund Budget and Tax Resolution as presented in the amount of $231,400,000 for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, with a real estate tax rate of 42.864 mils of the assessed valuation, $4.28.64 per $100 of assessed value, and a realty transfer tax of 0.5% with an earned income tax of 0.5% and the local services tax of $5. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none, Secretary, please call for the vote.
Donna Roland,
Yes.
Lear Nyako,
Yes.
Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Robin Seagreaves,
Yes.
Elgin Bailey,
Yes.
Liz Muirhead.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Item D, the Human Resources Report, that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leaves of absence, transfers, changes of status, and corrections as presented. Can I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call for the vote.
Robin Seagreaves,
Yes.
Donna Roland,
Yes.
Elgin Bailey,
Yes.
Liz Muirhead,
Yes.
Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Lear Nyako.
Yes.
Motion approved.
That brings it to me, right?
Yep.
Okay. Under Education Committee, item number A. Gotta go to mine. Sorry. That the Board of Directors approve the Dignity Consulting proposal as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments regarding this item? No? Can I have the vote?
Elgin Bailey,
Yes.
Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Liz Muirhead,
Yes.
Donna Roland,
Yes.
Robin Seagreaves,
Yes.
Lear Nyako.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, public comment. The board has requested all persons making comments of public concern list their name, address, telephone number, and topic on sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. Time may not be yielded to another speaker. Miss Lori Shannon? Oh, okay. That's a no. All right. Informational items. To my colleagues, is there any informational items?
Oh. Okay, good evening. I would like to give my condolences to the family of Emmanuel Eric Jackson, who passed away on May 26, 2024. Known as Eric Jackson, he was a 1972 graduate of Coatesville Area High School. Eric was very active in school, in the band, pep club, Society of Black Progressors, which is now the Black Student Union, stage crew, soccer, and indoor track. Eric was known and will be remembered as Chief Red Raider 1971 through 1972. Funeral services will be Saturday, June 15th at the VA Veterans Affairs Medical Center Chapel, 1400 Black Horse Hill Road. 11 o'clock is the viewing, and the service is at 12 noon. Eric will be missed by his wife, son, and brothers, and especially his brother Jimmy Jackson in the class of 1972.
Thank you, Ms. Rowland. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Yep, so moved.
This meeting is adjourned.
Oh, my Jesus.
I know.
What time are you going to the airport?
I need to calculate that when I get home. But I guess I need to be there no later. It won't
Then
be busy
3.
at that time.
3 o'clock.
Oh, no, I wouldn't go that
Really?
early.
I thought they said it could be 2 hours early, but not on
I
that
would-
time of night.
I'm going to tell you, there is no time that I go to the airport 2 hours early. Not once.